Hey, there we go. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Can't
Cool. Well, hey,
complain.
everybody. Nick, Brandon, and Barrett here, also known as Amongst Friends. Today is a podcast slash discussion, one we've been looking forward to quite a bit. We're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We have all three of us have now completed the game, and so it was a pretty lengthy playthrough, but we are going to dive in and kind of just to dissect the experience, share different thoughts and feelings, and hopefully cover our thoughts and just different things we noticed and stuff for the whole game. And if we can't cover it in this one session, we'll do another one. Um, but yeah, we're going to kind of go through the game more or less chapter by chapter, in a sense, at least by some specific events that were milestones. But yeah, so without further ado, how's it going, everybody? And Barrett or Brandon, we can start off by going and just kind of talking about like summarized feelings and opinions on the game as a whole. So what did you think?
Go ahead, Barrett.
I'll start and say I am head over heels for this game. Um, I loved it. Like beginning to end, I thought it was incredible. Um, even a game where things were even obvious fan service, I bought into it. I was like, give me all of it. Um, I think I put I want to say it took me 120-ish hours to finally complete it. And that's with just like taking my time in every area and exploring literally trying not to leave an area before I 100% it. And doing all the little side things. And I had fun doing it. Like I didn't feel, the only thing that made me feel rushed about it was just trying to keep up with you guys and wanting to talk about it. But that was just that anticipation. But I absolutely loved it. I think that what the first one set up, this one just took it home, and um, it's got me extremely excited for part three and what that could potentially be. And the wait for the next one is even more antagonizing than the wait for this one was. But I still, even putting that much time into it, I feel like I've still got a lot to explore with it. Like I'm definitely not done playing it. Rarely do I finish a game and immediately want to start it again. So that's been, that's definitely been the case for it. Um, yeah, I gotta say, like, as far as like probably it might be one of the best games of all time. I feel like I don't know how many times we're gonna say that, but and that's not even like I don't know. Like I can't compare anything else to it. It's huge and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and then it connected all of the bigness and just blew me away. Like whenever I would start feeling that burnout, I would finally or I'd get to the next part and then just be blown away again. Like I don't know. It was a great game and I'm excited to like dive into each little part.
Would you say that as a whole it exceeded? I know I was Brandon the same question. Would you say it exceeded your expectations? Did it meet them? Because I know we all had high expectations for the game going in,
I
but
don't think I could have had expectations that were as high as it exceeded them. Like I was expecting to, really get it, you know, get an awesome sequel to the remake, and it like I remember knowing that it was going to end where it was going to end, and thinking like, how are they going to make this much of a game out of basically the first disc? And it more than exceeded my expectations.
Yeah,
so Brandon, what about you, man?
for me too. I think it really exceeded expectations. Barrett mentions the wait, and like y'all have no clue like how long I had to wait between games. I guess that's like a brutal 2 months. But But no, for real, like from like January until the game came out. So what? The end of March. Like I was like so consumed by like the whole world. So I mean, obviously played through remake. Um, we saw Advent Children. I've started the original. Uh, Also played Dirge of Cerberus, and so I've just like consumed every bit that I could leading up to this, and yeah, I mean I mean I said it while I was playing it, and probably like right after I finished it, but it's like I don't want recency bias to take over too much, but like this is like one of the best games I've ever played. Like there's no doubt about it, and like it's kind of ruined me since. Like I was telling you guys earlier today that, you know, I probably started in the last month and a half, 2 months since I beat it. Like, I mean, I probably started like 10, 15 different games, and I've only completed one, and haven't been able to really stick with any of the other ones because like this game was so good. Like it was, I won't say it was perfect, but like it was near perfect in almost every area to where I was like I'm almost being like comparing things to it, whether that be like mechanics, voice actors, whatever, and like nothing's compared since, and yeah, so obviously I really
It's almost like the
really
things that
loved
would
it.
bog it down a little bit, the things that would make it, you know, kind of meh, were not enough to slow down just the force that it was. Like there was like a few little parts of the game where I was like, I could do without this, but it doesn't affect the grandness of it, I feel like.
Yeah. Like but yeah, I mean pretty much every aspect of it, like the story, the open world, the voice acting, like all the side content, the mini games, like I mean there's not really like a real weak point. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, well I mean, what about you, Nick?
Yeah. I thought it was great. I thought it was truly great. Um, I mean, I have a lot of individual thoughts and like moments that were especially um, special and like that have still stuck with me, and I'm looking forward to talking about. Um, but overall, it exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways. Um, I think it's one of the best Final Fantasy games that's been made, and that's kind of like the remakes, comparing it to the original. And I think it's something that's
It
really cool
reset
is
the
like
standard.
reset the standard, and it did a lot of things that Final Fantasy has been known to be awesome for, but like maybe we haven't seen since like Final Fantasy X. Not that we haven't seen some of it, but it kind of brought that back, some of that grandeur and scale. I mean, overall, I think what impressed me the most was I just kept playing it, being like, no other team could have done this within 4 or 5 years of development. And I think if you say it was 4 years, Barrett, I feel like you said like they started development right after. And I was like, they didn't cut anything from this. Like it doesn't feel like that. I'm sure they did, but it was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's like a
Especially
game
in
where they
this.
included all the deleted scenes. There are no
Yeah,
deleted scenes.
yeah. And they made them fit together really well. And like the music alone, talk about more. Like the number of tracks and revisions, like I can't get over like that they did that. Like I'm still playing some of the post game stuff, and they're introducing new tracks and new revisions of some of the same songs and stuff. And I'm just like, how did you even coordinate this? So like to me, it's also like a technological feat, like just like the achievement that they were able to do with making it and getting it done, and it not to be like to have virtually no significant bugs. Like I can't think of one where I saw something weird happening where I'm like stuck on the geometry or someone's clouds, scrolling through the level T posing and something in the middle of the cutscene to be dramatic. Like none of that happened, which you see in other games where you're like, man, I would love to play this where that didn't happen so that I could like stay in the experience. Like none of that stuff happened. So yeah, I think it's great. And I'll mention this again, but I think it's also like not just great Final Fantasy, but like it embodied like everything great about Square Enix. Like there was stuff that I was remembering from like Chrono Trigger, from Kingdom Hearts that they added just with how the battle system works, how the bonds with the characters work. There's things like that I loved about Mass Effect that they were putting in there. Yeah, all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, they almost like it almost scares me how much they put in because I'm like, hey, you guys don't have to do this for the third game, like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
because a
they
lot
set
of
the bar
games,
high.
well, they set the bar high, and a lot of games break under that, right? They try to put so much stuff in, and then it's like, oh, it's unfinished here, like this Final Fantasy 14 or whatever it was conversation. But anyway, I'll stop there and just say, yeah, I thought they did a phenomenal job. It had things. There's a few things maybe I expected that weren't in there, but there was more stuff I didn't expect that they did and they nailed that, and that kind of made up for the parts where I was like, oh, would have liked to see this in that way, to where I just ended up forgetting about that stuff. But yeah, phenomenal game. I regret not buying it physical just because like I want to have more stuff associated with it. And one more thought is the last thing I'll say about that is just like in summary is it's really cool because the original game now almost feels like we're playing like if you look back at it, it almost feels like a Nintendo DS version of this game we're playing now. That's how I had to visualize it. It's almost like a storyboard for this game where you're like, oh, there was all this emotion game that you kind of just picked up on, but now you can see it because their faces are expressing it, they're saying these new things, and you're like, oh, that's what was happening. But it's like we were just getting this weird archaic look at it as if they downscaled it, and at the time we didn't think that. But anyway, that just shows how good of a job they translating it, so yeah, that's my
that's been the thing
feel.
That's been the thing for me is like I didn't start playing the original until after I beat Remake, and playing through the original now, it kind of feels like you're playing like a Cliff Notes version of like,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, let's jump from bullet point to bullet point, and because they have added in a lot of filler, what some people would call filler, but like we Barrett, we kind of had the same conversation about at least the first few episodes of Dragon Ball Super, where it's like, yeah, there's filler here, but like it makes sense, and it makes you care about these people. It makes you care about these people more. It adds more to like the world building of it all, to where like playing through the original, like it's still good, but yeah, it definitely feels like we're jumping from like scene to scene without much emotion taking place at times where it maybe it should. And
I mean, people have grown to love all these characters over the years through like, their own understandings of them and everything, and it's like they've really taken like how we feel about those characters and just embodied them in a perfect way with the remake trilogy, but the way they're doing it now, and it's a game that's fully aware of itself in that way too. Like it knows that it's like I mean, it's taking context from Advent Children and how people have speculated over things over the years, like, and just going all in on every single character. Like they didn't leave anyone behind as far as like just adding a good characteristic nature to them, like it's incredible. I love, I mean, every bit of the voice acting. I think all the actors did great, especially the people stepping into roles that haven't been those characters other than the remake trilogy. Like, I don't know. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Well, they all nailed it.
Speaking of, before we get into the full review, I know one of the concerns for you going in was voice actor for Zack changing from the
had no
original
problems with
Crisis
him.
Core. I was going to ask. Because I know you had some concerns with the Crisis Core remaster.
Well, the reason that Crisis Core took me out is because I know a lot of those lines by heart. So it would be like if they remade Kingdom Hearts and someone else did Sora's voice. It would just like, you can say those same lines, but that ain't what you sound like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the good thing about this being fresh and not a remake of like not, it is a remake, but not like, they didn't recast lines from the same character. So they had did a good job with getting me used to Zack's voice through remake and the Crisis Core remake, which at first really hurt to get through, but by the end of it, I was like, okay, I can be on board. It just really, really sucks that it's not the same guy, but whatever. But nothing in Rebirth about Zack took me out of it. I was sold on it. So even him, I thought he did great. I mean, I can't change the past. It's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't even notice like any annoyance towards the voice. And I'd seen the same thing you had mentioned, like with Crisis Core, just the difference. I was like, oh, like I think maybe it was just like you said, the lines, delivering the new lines. I think that voice actor did a good job. I just don't.
Yeah.
I think it's hard anytime they go back and re-record, like with a different voice actor. I remember the same thing happened in Kingdom Hearts.
Character.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts did it with Ansem. With Ansem, I was like, oh my god, who is this? Why? Like the guy they had was awesome. But anyway, yeah, the voice acting.
And I'm also sure, like I'm guessing, I don't know how much time in between, but he did the voice acting for Crisis Core remaster before this, so I'm sure there was like time to get feedback or get more comfortable in the role too. And
it sucks because the guy that did Zack's original voice even voiced Zack in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
So like that's the original voice actor, and I mean there's still a bit of time in between that there, but like I don't know, I haven't really researched why they decided to make that change, but yeah,
Zack was in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, he was on the Thebes.
How did I forget this?
He was on Hercules' level.
Oh man!
Sorry, spoilers.
Sorry,
I know we're talking about a whole other game now, but I'm not going to tell you what happened.
Sorry,
but yeah, he's there.
Yeah. Anyway,
that spoiler alert sign's there for a reason. We're just going to spoil everything. I want to talk about the end of something else.
No, we should. What else could we spoil? Sorry for my question.
Whatever we want with that thing.
Well, to avoid some of that as much as we can, like we're gonna try to go through chapter by chapter. That way, if anybody is listening, has like a maybe if any of y'all haven't finished the game yet, or something along those lines, we'll try to go loosely chapter to chapter. That way, if you do need to hop off to avoid any spoilers, you can do that. And then once we put this up on YouTube, we'll have timestamps in for each of those chapters so you can come back to it.
Real quick, I want to address, I know Chemical Witness asked if we have a Discord set up. We have our own personal Discord that we keep contact each other through and keep up with each other. But and how discuss the podcast and stuff, and that's what we're using now to video chat. But we don't have it set up to a way that we can have a whole public community, and I don't really know how to set that up because I'm not super savvy with Discord. So
yeah, we mainly got to
that might be something that we can talk about on how to set it up to where we can have something like that and build a community, because we do want to do something like that in the future.
Yeah, mainly just got to figure out different permissions and stuff and viewing certain channels. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something we want to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, I think Chemical Witness said he's at the point. He's he hasn't gone to the Temple of the Ancients yet. He's right before he needs to go to the Temple of the Ancients. So I told him he's still got five. He said I said 5 hours. I think I said like 5 to 7 or 8 hours, just depending on how.
I can't wait to
I
talk
didn't
about
realize
the
how much I
Temple of the
still had.
Ages.
Yeah.
The Temple of the Ages. Oof.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay, but we'll get to that, right?
But yeah.
So, Brandon, you kind of got the train tracks for the chronological order of the game. What's the first? So we kind of want to go, I think, more or less through some key points. So what's the first? What's
So
the first thing you got?
the the interlude or the beginning of the game, we get a brief flashback of remake. Then you start seeing news reporters covering the destruction of Midgar and the collapse of the plate and everything. And through like the news broadcast, you can see like pretty much the whole party laying there unconscious or putting on stretchers and loaded into helicopters. And then it motions to Zach helping Cloud escape into the city. And Zach's watching this broadcast and sees, a few of the. He sees the party being taken away. Obviously, he recognizes at least Aerith, and he leaves Cloud with like just some random person like, here, take care of him, and so he gives chase to the one of the helicopters, and then we see Red attack one of the pilots and bring one of the choppers down, and but like so from there like it transfers like control of Zack to the player, and you go through like your first few combat sequences of the game. And for this part, I absolutely love like the combat of this area. Like I wish we got to play with Zack more, because like a lot of the combos and a lot of the special moves were like straight out of Crisis Core, and it felt it felt good playing a more polished version of that, because I finished Crisis Core like maybe a week or so before the game came out, so it was really fresh on my mind. But through that, Zack finds Aerith on the ground, and I think we're kind of left as he's like cradling her. I think it's implied.
And she kind of like it implies that she like dies in his arms.
Yeah, that's what
Pretty,
that's what it
which
seems
is like,
to.
yeah. Well, how are you gonna open this game up with a fucking like just heart ripper? Like,
Yeah,
he gets the girl back, and she just, like.
All I could think about was you, Barrett. I'm serious. Like when I started it, I knew you hadn't played it yet, and I was just thinking like I saw Zach and I was like, he's alive and something's happening. I was like, I didn't even like try to put my head around what the story was. I'm like, there's some multiversal like rewriting of history going on, but I was like, oh, Barrett's gonna freak out.
Yeah, the game opened up
I could think about
sobbing, dude. It was almost like the time in between I finished Crisis Core fucking however long ago, 15 years ago, or however longer than that ago it was, for the first time, to that point. It was almost like there was no time in my emotions in between. It was just like bam, bam. Like game opens up and I am like heartbroken again. Like, I don't know. It was a genius hook, to be honest. Like, just for them to start it out like that, and
yeah, because I think they may have flashed it on the screen once, but I can't remember for sure if there's like a image of like Stamp anywhere in that area to imply that it's a different timeline or anything like that.
yeah, I don't remember in the beginning of the game. It's towards the end of the game that I started paying more attention to stamps. But yeah, I would assume that that's like the same area that you see Zack in with the Terrier stamp later on. But yeah, I thought it was a great hook. It broke my heart. And was really sad not to see Zach for a long time after that.
Yeah, it was quite a while.
This, just gonna go ahead and say it now that this game, as much as this game did with Zach, if he's not a fucking full party member in the next one, dude. At some point, I'll like, yeah, we'll get to that because there's definitely a part where like we can talk about that. But this introducing like because I think when we were talking about this game before, I don't remember thinking like expecting how much playability we would have with Zach, and the game just opening up and giving you control of him right off the bat was like, holy shit! Like it seemed like it was setting up even more playability with him, but.
Well, I think it is right. Just perhaps not in this
longer term. Like they're in this for the long game.
Long.
I think that's the long game. And I think that's clever because I mean, like Brandon was talking about before we went into this, like his long wait in between games. Like, bro, you should have seen how many years people talked about there being a Final Fantasy VII remake. It was basically the other Half-Life 3 joke. Like, it was basically the other joke of a game that's going to get remade that's never going to get remade. And then they finally teased it. And everyone was like, holy shit, like it's actually happening. And it was like...
got brain damage over that announcement. Yeah.
When Kingdom Hearts 3 got announced and it didn't come out for fucking 7 or 8 years, it was like that kind of thing. Like where it was like, oh, it's announced, but is it ever actually going to happen? Like, so... Yeah, it just amazes me that we're at this point where we're like halfway through this new trilogy after all this waiting, and they've just I'm gonna gush over this game for the next 4 hours. So,
so question for you guys, real quick. Both of y'all played Crisis Core, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't, but I got like I think the general idea of the story more or less from you guys. So when you play as Zach in Rebirth, did you notice that he had animations and moves that you recognized from Crisis Core? And was that, if yes, that must have been pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think like even like the triangle button maneuver, whatever he used, like it was like his combo from Crisis Core. I think he had. I'm pretty sure he used a lot of the same materia, or like they gave him like a base set. Yeah,
I want to even say the music whenever you play with him is reminiscent of Crisis Core music. Like there's a lot of Zach moments where you're like, holy shit, they're playing shit straight out of Crisis Core right now. Like when you're playing as him, it embodies the whole feeling of like basically where he's from.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome. Yeah. That was a special moment for me. I think it was unique from what you guys felt. Like, you know, Zach is a cool character. Like, all the significance Zach has for me is from the original game, right? And who he was in the original game. So, like, I still was, like, pumped to see him, and I know that he's got a huge following. But, like, I wasn't a part of the Crisis Core fan club, right? Not that I have any particular feelings about it. But, yeah, when I saw that, though, I knew how excited, like, you guys were going to be. Especially you, Barrett. So I was like geeking out, just imagining like the emotional response you guys were going to have. So that was a cool experience for me. On top of being like, oh my gosh, Zach is here, dude. I met when I was this character I met right when I was 13. You know, who was just kind of a background that you kind of find out about. So. But you know, but not at the same time. So yeah, that was cool. That was a big part of it for me.
My memory of him in the original game is just not as complete as Crisis Core made it for me. Like, I think there's a lot of context that I skipped over in my original playthrough of Final Fantasy VII, where it's like I remember a few scenes with him in it, but like. The way Crisis Core brought him to life, like I've since learned that it's very many people's like not favorite installment of the Final Fantasy VII compilation or whatever. But like for me, like I love that guy. I think he's awesome. I think he's a role model. and I don't know. I like that they're giving him another chance, and I mean, they might really be trying to sell him in this to some people, however they want to look at it or whatever. But like, I don't know. I think he's a great character, and I love that they're playing with it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it might be like out there to say this, but after playing Remake, playing Crisis Core, and like, I don't want to go too far in the future with this game yet, because we'll talk about it later. But knowing what his significance is to the story, it's like come on, he's kind of really the main character in a way.
He is.
So
Yeah.
he deserves it.
He absolutely deserves it. I agree.
Anyways,
I've said
Any
it for
other-
years.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I've said it for years. Cloud wouldn't be shit without this guy.
We'll talk about this more. Cloud still might not be any shit, or might not be shit. And that's an important point we have to get to, because I think like one of the best. Anyway, we'll talk about that more. But any other thoughts on the interlude, or was it the interlude that they titled that kind of chapter?
yeah, I'm good with it.
I would just add that I think they did a great job getting your blood pumping right away, like showing that wrap up edit of the final part of Remake, and just the music pumping and stuff. You were just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, like you felt like you just finished it.
Put on the gas.
Yeah, it was just like right there, and like I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm like what happened in the original game. I remember what happened in the remake. Okay, cool, let's go. So I just thought they did a great job of that, and that's hard to do with multi-part games or sequels and stuff. Like even like Mass Effect and stuff, they have a hard time kind of reminding you.
Yeah,
a lot of times they do that recap. Well, I know that recap was available too, where it's like previously on, but I thought they'd get a good job just like within 60 seconds, kind of being like, yeah, here's the big thing that happened that you've been waiting on where to pick up from. So anyway.
Yeah. So from there we go into Chapter 1, which is actually the demo mission that we got, prior to the launch, and this first chapter kind of lays the groundwork for the journey to come, and Cloud in the present recounting, at the end of the game of Remake, actually the DLC, they hop on a truck and they're on their way to Calm. And so now here in chapter 1 of this game, they're now at a hotel in Calm, and Cloud's recounting his trip to Nibelheim with Sephiroth 5 years ago. And so as he's recounting his past, it actually puts you in control in that flashback where you're in control of both Cloud and Sephiroth, and so I can't remember exactly what was it. They were on a mission to survey an old reactor, and during this time, Sephiroth and Cloud are, I guess they're bonding a little bit. Sephiroth's like telling of like his past, and reveals that his mother was Genova, who died after his birth. And while Cloud's telling this story, Barrett kind of interrupts him in the present day, and acknowledges that I guess the whole party knows it's the same Genova they saw in the Shinra building from the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you can explore around Nibelheim there with Cloud, and you can go to his house, and I think at that point you get a few flashes of visions and stuff from Cloud. You can go around to
different memory areas. like the water tower and the bar, the Tifa's house and his house.
Yeah, I think it's one funny moment that stood out to me in this area was when you do go to Tifa's house and like they're actually talking in present day of like, oh, I don't remember you going there and all this. And I think at one point there's a few items in her house you can interact with, and I think one of them might be like her wardrobe or something. And it was like real funny if like you choose to open it up like in present, Tifa and Aerith both like call Cloud out for being an asshole, like snooping around in her shit.
Yeah, I love that.
Um,
So I like this mission too because like it's Cloud's first like mission with Sephiroth. So like Cloud's a hero, or Sephiroth's a hero, and like he's finally getting to go do something with Sephiroth, and he's like, yeah, we're teaming up. And like versus the Cloud that we know, he's uncharacteristically charismatic, and checking on the team members in that first in the truck and stuff, and making sure that everybody's good to go. Like I
yeah,
don't know.
and especially like around that time, like, and I think Crisis Core does a good job of the way it's portrayed, but like in the eyes of like Soldier and everybody, like Sephiroth pretty much is a hero or a legend to them at this time. Um,
Oh yeah, like everyone just gawks at him, takes pictures of him, photo like wants his autograph and all this stuff because of all the how renowned he is.
and for sure, like Crisis Core, I mean, really made me like him. It made him even more likable
Hmm.
for me too, um, because I think one thing that game did a real good job of is they kind of portrayed it as if like Zack, Sephiroth, and Jill, which is one of the other soldiers, uh, they weren't like completely like the villains that the main game kind of portrays them out to be. Um, so you do get a little more insight on that side of, I guess, the public's view of them. Um,
Hmm.
let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I realized for me like that chapter re-solidified that like Sephiroth is just like not just an awesome villain, but like an awesome character, and like not. One of the reasons he's a great villain is because he was a friend, he was a mentor, and someone that they respected and trusted, and then he just totally betrays it. But almost, like something that it kind of reminded me of was almost like Bucky from like Captain America, Winter Soldier type thing, right? Like just a good guy who really just can't mentally bear this truth, and he just breaks. Like to me, there's still some version of Sephiroth
Yeah.
out there that just never learned the truth, and he just kept on being this awesome guy, right? And like I really enjoyed getting to see more of that in the chapter.
I think I
Oh,
told y'all already, but like I've been playing that Ever Crisis phone game, and they just released a chapter that gives more context to Sephiroth's path, making his fall seem like Anakin's fall. Like this has just been there's been thing after thing after thing after thing, and then finally it just breaks, and it really humanizes him a bit, which like I don't know is really good.
I will say that that opening, just as the credits start rolling and like the theme picks up, like you're running with Tifa, Sephiroth, you're kind of going up towards the reactor at that one point,
Yeah.
and then like I want to say that leads into like the Final Fantasy VII logo, or at least one of the openings,
Yeah.
I guess you could say. Thought that was
Yeah.
really well directed and exciting and gets your blood pumping, even though like all hell breaks loose within 30 minutes, honestly, of that chapter, and things just start getting progressively worse. I thought they did a great job directing that and like getting you hyped for the journey you were going on. Even for people who'd already kind of knew what the story was. I will say I got a little scared when you had to push around those vacuums to suck up the Mako
Yeah.
powder. But I'm, it's not a big deal. Hindsight 2020. I'm just glad that that wasn't like a reoccurring activity throughout the game. But
Game definitely
yeah.
did a good job at not like forcing super repetitive tiny things like that at you. It's kind of confined
Yeah,
to
I was
the
like, oh, no.
area.
It's like, please, I'll be at chapter 13 doing this still. This does not need to be. But then I ended up being able to appreciate it and going, well, it did break up the gameplay a little bit. But yeah, I'm just glad they put in some stuff like that so that you get a little break from combat and all that. But yeah.
So, anyways, from there, as a group, Cloud, Sephiroth, and Tifa are heading up to the reactor, and they cross a bridge. And about halfway across that bridge, lightning strikes and collapses the bridge, and everybody falls into the river. Sephiroth is able to save Tifa from being washed away, and Cloud rescues one of the Shinra soldiers, and so they all get back to dry land, and Sephiroth, says they need to push forward. Tifa with them. At that point, I think Sephiroth officially joins the party in a playable sense, and so that leads into a battle sequence where you can actually play as Sephiroth, and at that point, obviously, they give you control of him, and he's overpowered. So you're pretty much just
one shot
cutting
and
through,
everything.
cutting through everything with ease.
I love it. Just a great example of how strong he is. Like let's show you how strong he is by letting you control him and fuck shit up with him.
Yeah, that's
so good.
That whole sequence was very reminiscent of the Vader sequence in Force Unleashed, where at the very start of that game, you have control of Vader, and you've got all the powers that Starkiller's going to acquire throughout the game, and it's just kind of with this, it's kind of a little taste of what it is to have all that power.
Yeah.
So then. So then from there, I think Sephiroth is explaining to Cloud how materia empowers people, and I think at that point they run into a materia guardian, and that triggers the first boss fight of the game, which you get to play as Sephiroth, and then you get to actually do a limit break using Octaslash.
Yeah.
I think that might actually be the first instance of...
Hey, this could all be, like I was talking about Zack foreshadowing for the next game, I think this might be some foreshadowing too.
Potentially.
I think there's going to be more of that.
Especially because they went all the way to also, I think it's the first instance of a synergy ability too. And so they went out of their way to give the two of them a synergy attack.
Are you trying to give me hope for some more Sephiroth gameplay? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I put money on it.
What did y'all think of that
boss
boss
fight?
fight?
To it.
What y'all think of that boss fight? Generally speaking, any special thoughts? I thought I'll just throw it out there. I thought it really demonstrated how they either maintained or improved the graphics. I thought the detail on that creature was amazing, and switching him back and forth with the cinematics in the gameplay, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I bought a PS5. That was kind of where I was at, and it was remembering the original battles that you got into, and I want to say you fought that creature. Honestly, I don't remember, but getting to at least think for a minute that, oh hey, yeah, this was this is a redesigned boss from the original game. It was cool just getting to see that, all ferocious and awesome in 2024.
Yeah, I think I don't remember in the original game if you have control of Sephiroth, but I know you do a few battles at the very beginning with him in the party, and I think he just one shots everything in it as well.
Yeah. He's way OP. He's even more powerful, I think.
But no, this fight was definitely like a good intro boss, because there was some challenge to it, but it wasn't the hardest one of the game.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I'm having trouble remember its specific design, but I do remember just I don't know, I was all in.
Yeah, just drinking it at that point, right?
Yeah. Sweet nectar.
Chemical Witness, I see you got to head out, so we'll miss you. Thanks for being part of the conversation.
Yeah, see you, man. Also, you're fresh on the heels of playing Crisis Core, and then you're playing this too as a memory. So
yeah.
You're already. I know you said you've played a little. You've been playing through the original as well, but playing this and being oh, this all seems familiar. But that's what I've loved about this so far is this game plays like you should know what happened in Crisis Core, but it does play the way where if you play Crisis Core, you should probably understand the original too. So what happened in the original kind of helps with the context just in general, but I think it's really good that you did play Crisis Core before this, because I don't know, like I said, this game is aware of Crisis Core. It's aware of Advent Children. It's aware of all the properties. So anything you have played just gives, I don't know. It's still gonna end with this big crazy fucking Tetsuya Nomura mindfuck. So
Yeah, I don't think it ties into Kingdom Hearts though, and I think that's a real missed opportunity. I think they got to weave that lore in.
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We don't know. Clouds. I want Clouds wrapped up Buster Sword in the next one.
Buster Keyblade. I want a Buster Keyblade.
Or the fusion sword from Advent Children. I want it. I think it could all be there.
Oh.
Especially with the way this game ends. The way this game goes, I'm fighting mosquitoes in my room, apparently. What the hell? And you can, if you're watching this, you need to close the windows.
Dan's trying to smoke you out, dude. Hot box.
That or it's the government and their spy drones. But, what was I saying? Oh, no. Yeah, with the way this game ends, I mean, multiple universes apparently. There's plenty to open up. There's other worlds. What is it? Mm-hmm. The door. It's been opened.
Don't get me. Now you got my gears turning.
Look, telling you.
No, we're not doing this right now. We're not doing this right now. It's too early in the conversation.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
Brandon, so Brandon, the Mako piece was what you were saying. What happens next?
So after that boss fight is when they both venture into the reactor, and at that point Tifa waits outside, Cloud and Sephiroth go in, and that's when Sephiroth first stumbles upon the Genova tank.
And I wish he had his same monologue from Crisis Core where he's like, "Mother, I had an epiphany." And he takes her head.
Yeah.
I wish they would have kept some of the dialogue the same.
I think, and then from there, I think it pops back into present day where Cloud, mentions that they returned back to the end, but Sephiroth became a recluse and just pretty much disappeared without informing anybody. Um, eventually, Cloud goes to the manor, finds him in the library downstairs, and Sephiroth's been doing all this research on ancient life forms and stuff, and I guess finds out the true origins of Jenova, and
Which is crazy that it's just there.
yeah,
You know, like it's not like locked up in Hojo's lab. You know,
No.
he doesn't have. Why doesn't like you? You know, all that information is just sitting in an abandoned mansion. I don't know.
yeah,
It's not realistic, but it's fun.
which
Glorious Reason just joined us in the chat, so
hey, thanks for joining.
thank you.
So yeah, like going through this area and like downstairs in the manor and everything. I think from after playing Remake, like I said, I started the original, played Crisis Core, and played Dirge of Cerberus, and it was like there's all different versions of like going into the manor, and like for the most part, like layouts of this place are all like different in every game. Like there might be a few similarities here and there, but it was interesting seeing like the different interpretations from like the artists and stuff on how everything was laid out. It was kind of cool, like in what was it in Crisis Core, like you can actually go into the room where you pretty much grab the clothes that Zach gave Cloud, and
Everything
so, like,
he's wearing in Final Fantasy VII.
yeah. So then going back
I love
through it
that.
on this game, like, oh, I remember, like, this room's where all the Cloud clothes are in, like in this wardrobe right here that I can't open.
What happened to the stairs?
Yeah. Let's see, where was I at?
He was talking about the mansion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people, I think, were critical of some of the mansion's layout, like the actual architecture of it. And I'm like, no, looks like I remember it. I'm fine with staircases being moved around. I'm like, I'm good. Yeah, it's fine.
It looked. Yeah, I think this is the first time I was really like, holy crap! The mansion in Kingdom Hearts 2 is the Shinra mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't. I mean, mansions can look the same. It kind of also resembles like the Resident Evil Spencer's
Yeah.
mansion. Kind of had that kind of vibe to it too. Whenever you walk in, but I don't know, like just making. I mean, it's pretty mansiony. It's okay.
No, you're right. Well, and it also serves some of the same kind of story purposes. If you think about it, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. But I mean, it's Tetsuya Nomura, right? So it's like he's definitely got his fingerprints in how he's telling these stories between these games.
Yeah. So at this point in this chapter is where Sephiroth acknowledges that Jenova was an ancient, and the whole Jenova project was an attempt to resurrect the ancients and that birthed him. And like this is the moment Sephiroth snaps and like launches Cloud across the room, knocking him unconscious, and coming to, like, Cloud goes outside, everything's on fire, the whole town's on fire, and I think Cloud gets flashes of his mother telling him to get away and survive.
Man, this part of the game too, dude. Like as many times I feel like I've experienced it through the different things. Like it slowed it down and made you like it. The room that I was in felt hot because of all the fire. But like the limping back to town It's all on fire. You're trying to go different directions and things are falling in your path. So you've got to kind of divert and go different directions. I think the first thing you can really get to is like you can try to go to your house and you see like a Shinra soldier on the ground next to you that's like crawling towards the house as well and like reaches up and says half of the word mom before it just like collapses. Like just all the like it was very slow and I remember being like in that feeling like I want to play and get through this. I want to do this, but like that part really made you slow down and like feel the pain of what's happening and the tragedy of the destruction of Nibelheim. Like just think about how fanatical all those people were about Sephiroth coming to town, and then he burned it all to the ground.
Yeah, and like you're seeing all this from Cloud's perspective, and like as you're being helped up, like Sephiroth runs the sword through the guy that's helping you up. And then you see him like take down the mayor, and like so then that's when he walks through the flames, and
yeah, that iconic Darth Vader moment.
yeah.
This we've all seen it 100 times. This just looks better than ever, you know.
So then at that point, it jumps to Cloud returning back to the reactor to confront Sephiroth and finds Tifa there grieving over her father's body. She grabs Masamune off the ground and charges at Sephiroth in one of the chambers. He catches the blade last second, reverses it, and slashes her across the chest or across the abdomen. Cloud carries Tifa to safety afterwards, but at that moment it kind of appears to Cloud as if she died. Cloud storms into Jenova chamber, and we get one of Sephiroth's good monologues to Jenova.
That's the moment I was thinking of. His monologue was a little different here, but it was still really good.
Yeah, it was. And then I think at that point it flashes back to the present day where Cloud doesn't remember anything that happens after that.
And that's it. End of the story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like the few variations of like different games I've played, it's like all different like retellings or different perspectives. So it's always nice to see like this is like a different perspective than we've seen before. Because in Crisis Core you see Zack's perspective of it, so you actually see what happens at this moment.
Yeah. And yeah, there's even moments where like there's just like little connections between Cloud and one of the other Shinra soldiers that's just subtle enough to where it's like, you know, you can kind of see the bottom of his hair right here and the shape of like the lower part of his face, and you're like, wow, like they're going all in on like just the, I don't know, like I loved all the just the tiny little details that they add to that for this to all really come around.
So go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say it's just such an iconic chapter. Like it hit all the things that needed to happen. That's one of the like that whole sequence is like what told you the story of like what happened. Like you play, it's so interesting because you play like even the original game and remake, you play for hours and hours without knowing like even who the full villain of the game is. Like Shinra is just the villain.
Yeah.
And then Sephiroth kind of gets introduced like essentially a third of the way through the game almost. You know, maybe not a third, maybe a quarter, but still.
A good bit into the game, like they don't even they say his name,
but he's a
but
mystery.
you never see him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a big mystery, and that chapter kind of tells you like, oh, this is what he has to do with the story and with what's happening and with who Cloud is and all this different stuff. So there was a lot to cover in that chapter, and it goes like a huge arc. It goes from being your buddy and it being a pretty by the books mission to, you know, the town burning down and all these family members and stuff dying. So it was awesome getting to like go through that, even though that crawling section with the L2 and R2 was a little off. But I was like, you know,
pacing.
Yeah, I was like, it's fine. I was like, it's fine. It was either that or just push up on the analog stick. I was like, but it was worth it because they tell that story. And he's just picking off people one by one. You're like, I would have gotten out of there. I was like, what did you guys expect to do to Sephiroth? Like, you know, his sword is 7 feet long, but yeah.
When there was a few months ago or whatever, you asked like what some of our favorite features of the PlayStation 5's like control things, and I will say that moment where you're crawling with the L2 and R2 is not at the top of my list of features.
No, it's not top of mine either.
Because I feel like it's not the first game where I've had to hold L2 and R2 for a slow climbing sequence or crawling sequence, and I don't enjoy those.
Yeah, I have a tough time with like moments like that in games because there's not much freedom you have to do anything different than other than what it's wanting you to do. So it's like at that point, just make that a cutscene.
Yeah, I would have almost preferred that.
If I can't like have my own freedom to make a different action or something, maybe not necessarily that it needs to change the story, but like it's kind of similar in like other games where you'll have like a cutscene or like a section of the game where like maybe you're talking to a different character, but you can still walk around or move the camera around. But like in something like this, it's like you're forced to do this one thing. It's not necessarily like a quick time event or anything, so there's not really any failing of it. So like sometimes I have trouble with the necessity of stuff like this. Other than part of it, I guess they make you want to make you feel like you're in that moment, but yeah, I don't necessarily always think it's necessary. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a cutscene will suffice.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. I think in development they probably have a hard time trying to be like, hey, should we be giving the player something to do, or should we just let them like from this perspective, have Cloud crawling and just kind of have that story being told as he's getting closer to it and stuff. They probably like at a certain point just don't know what the best decision is. I would agree that like having to forcibly press L and R may not have been the best thing, but I do like the scene itself. I probably would have been fine with like it from that same camera angle, like Cloud crawling towards it, because all your attention is focused on what's happening with Sephiroth and those villagers up ahead. It's just that you're breaking your PlayStation controller. By the way, that's probably the hardest I've ever had those triggers fight back on my controller with that part. But yeah, it was one of those things. I think it's like it's a pet peeve, like, but not necessarily unique to Final Fantasy. But I think overall, I think we agree they probably like nailed like what was happening. It's just, the effort as from the player perspective probably wasn't necessary. I would agree with you guys.
Yeah.
They should have done a mini game, like where music notes came down, that's been awful. You can fail it. You got to start it over.
Playing the piano while it's all happening.
Wood falls on you because you didn't do it fast enough, and you start to crawl over. Oh, now that stuff, that's the kind of crap that makes me just want nothing to do with it. So
literally the opening crawl.
So from there, party kind of dismisses for the night, and Aerith and Tifa are discussing what they thought Cloud's been doing for the past 5 years, because this is like the first seed that was kind of thrown in that Tifa knew Cloud wasn't there, or at least wasn't in the position he says he was in. Like, I still don't think she knew he she didn't know he was there, but obviously it's not the story that he was telling either.
Yeah, I really like her seating of doubt. Like, she's like, is this how this happened? She doesn't say anything blatantly, but it's just enough for her to be like, okay, I'm gonna go along with it.
Yeah.
You know,
like elaborate on that. Like what? Like I still trying to figure out like what Tifa's perspective and state of mind was as she was making those decisions on how she handled that. What do y'all think she was?
I mean, I think she's dealing with
spoilers.
some trauma too. That like maybe she don't completely remember everything that happened either.
She's questioning her memories because it was traumatic for both of them. But I mean, she remembers that being not just, you know, Cloud was an infantryman in the background when this was all going on, and Zack and Sephiroth were taking the forefront on this mission, and she helped them go up there. So like, she remembers it differently, but maybe doesn't want to question it too much because she's also been through a lot too, or she doesn't want to put Cloud in an uncomfortable situation because maybe he's telling it how he remembers it. She's not going to be like, no, that's not how that happened. It's not really in her character too much to be like abrasive like that. But
that sounds.
But like, there's just, I don't know. I like those little moments where she kind of, especially whenever talking about specific big moments like that, like just her like not really 100%, and then her and Aerith start bonding a little bit more right from that moment. Like,
yeah, the shipping started. The shipping started on that.
Yeah,
I agree with you though. They did a really good job. That's like a reoccurring theme in the game. They did a really good job. Like you could tell the characters were struggling. I didn't always understand like how they were handling some of these situations where like there's obviously some weird gaps or weird behaviors they're dealing with from each other. They did a great job at like kind of making it believable that they were like how they were handling that, and on top of, like I said, all that trauma and not trying to make things worse, not trying to be so confrontational that it just causes Cloud to go off the deep end, which seems like could probably happen at any point in time. But yeah, and that was something like that was never in the original. I felt like like they couldn't say that part of the storytelling in the original between the characters is like just those awkward, not quite sure what you're feeling emotions. Like you just don't know the right way to handle this situation. But being able to see the characters and the voice acting was so darn good that you were like really picked up on like, yeah, there's some really painful situations here happening and there's like no right way to handle it, but they're still kind of navigating it, because they care about each other, right?
It's also a huge testament to how far like along animation and stuff has come to where you can actually show good emotion on an animated face and it says like no words says so much as if it were like a live action character acting, like that. There's just a lot of those moments, and it started right out of the gate with this, that like they don't really have to say a lot and you can already feel like what they're thinking. I love that.
I don't understand this comment at all. Something went over my head. What's this about beard growth? I don't know.
That's a Barbara. I love this. It's the perfect evolution of beard growth. Well, one day our beards will be as fine as Brandon's.
I don't know. He's got a head start on us.
Yeah.
He's got like.
I was also looking at Glorious Reason. I think this is my old buddy Greg. I hope I'm right about that. He said maybe we'll do a giveaway. I'm just a part of the live studio audience. Glorious Reason. If you check under your chair, I've already given you your giveaway.
He's got a steel case, man.
You all get one. Yeah, you all get the steel case that I didn't get.
Oh yeah, you didn't get that. Yeah, you didn't get that, did you, Barry? You didn't want it,
Old Greg style.
Greg style.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's right.
No,
What's up, man? I'm glad to see you here.
Not old Greg.
Been a long
Greg
time.
stuff. Huh. I could go for Greg stuff.
If you're local
Like
and
Wingstop.
you're a gamer, you know Greg. If you've been if you've been around town for a long time, you know everybody knows Greg.
All right. Old Greg.
He's a good guy.
Greg stuff. Fair enough.
He ain't old yet. He's still got a lot of Greg in him. Anyways,
Take that at face value. Yeah, anyway, what were we talking about?
So anyways,
Where were we?
after Aerith and Tifa talk, like later on, Tifa calls for Cloud to meet her, and Cloud's interrupted by a vision of Sephiroth, who questions Cloud how Tifa's alive if she was killed, because from Cloud's memory of this flashback, Tifa did die, because he don't remember anything that happened after pretty much moving her body, and so at that point, like this is like one of the first instances of Tifa, you know, showing her scar to prove that she's real. And at that point, Cloud mentions he can't, you know, remember or tell her anything about where he's been the past 5 years, which isn't a lie. So then I think that kind of rounds out the first chapter. So I don't think in the demo, I don't think did they show like this last cinematic part, or was it just like the Sephiroth stuff?
I want to say it ended with Cloud crawling forward, and then it was like, yeah, game's coming out.
Yeah,
That's what I remember, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, and then updated it with the Junon stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember it going as far in the demo. Which I mean, did it? Or maybe it did. It gives us the option. It didn't give us the option to completely skip all that because no, you start from the beginning because it did. I mean, the Zack stuff wasn't in the demo, so.
Yeah, there was part that it could let
I've
you skip,
already-
but
like,
I didn't even
It was
do
a
it.
long time ago that I play. Like, there's so much game after this that I'm like, the beginning of the game, I'm a little hazy on like the. That's why I'm glad that you're kind of cutting through because it is kind of helping me remember like certain story points that have been lost to at least 50 hours of mini games I want to devote. There's a lot of time spent on just side stuff.
So chapter 2.
So
I feel like a lot happened. Like I was on chapter 2 for a long time.
yeah,
but
well, I
the
mean,
maybe not a
Grasslands
lot
were
of
huge.
not a lot of story happened, but the area there was so much gameplay and so much getting introduced. I think is why I was on
well,
that for so
because
long.
I think that was our. So chapter 2 sees party leaving Calm
Mhm.
to evade Shinra into the grasslands. So that's like, I know there's a sequence beforehand, but that was our first entrance into the open world, and they're just kind of like, okay, go do whatever you want to do at that point, which was a little overwhelming at first because I was like,
It was sad to see an awesome, chill place like Calm get overtaken like that by Shinra too. Because like, I thought they did a good job at making Calm pretty chill.
yeah, there's a lot that they introduced in this area because like I think at the very beginning of the level, like they introduced Queen's Blood cards.
Queen's Blood. Here we go.
Yeah, the best feature of the game.
Yeah, arguably the best side thing in the game that's mostly avoidable up until a certain point if you're really trying to. But like I remember being introduced to a card game and being like, like I've done this before. Like how's this gonna break my brain? But and this I quickly was like, okay, I think I get this. Okay, this is fun.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. And then they started introducing like crazy mechanics to it later on that were like,
But
oh,
I
you
feel
really
like
gotta think about this crap.
I feel like the different levels that they introduced it, like it didn't introduce anything new until you were ready, or like that it was sure that
Yeah,
you
yeah. You
understood
thought
what
you
you were
were
doing.
good. You thought you were good. Like you got this. You're great at it. You've got, you've taken down 12 people by now and whatever. And then, all right, now we're gonna do things that whenever you play one card, it affects another card, and then things start popping off whenever you play things. And it got hard, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I actually did enjoy it. I did like the entire Queen's Blood narrative of the game, and I didn't think I was even going to touch it. But I tell you what helped me out. Like, I still don't think I understand 99% of how to play it, but I do know that the more green dots you have and the less red dots you have, the better. And I just held on to that understanding, and then just it carried me through the whole game. I think I changed my deck twice.
Oh
And
man, I
I
had
just
like
wanted
4 or 5 decks built at least.
Dude,
Like, and that I felt like that wasn't enough. But
I
like
did
I would
Russian
think
roulette on
about
this
it.
one deck, and it just like I was able to make it work all the way through to where I was getting like elite cards, and I was like, no, I need this Moogle in my deck. That's all I need. I need this Moogle, and I need to get it there, and that just needs to happen on random. I was restart the match over and over again, and I just take like sheer force of will, just bashed my head through every one of those rounds, and it worked, man. I was looking at it going, how did I get all these points?
No,
I was like, how did I get so much green?
You can know what you're doing or not know what you're doing, and you'll get through it. It's not gonna.
I enjoyed seeing the green, like I enjoyed accumulating green spaces on the board. That was enough for me to keep going. I don't know how I did it. I mean, it seemed like the cards, like putting down the cards and stuff really helped. But that's
Great.
I want to play more of it too. But yeah, I would love to hear.
Take me back to when we were playing Magic, and I remember you being present, but not one.
I wasn't present. Nope.
I didn't
I don't remember
I
nothing.
should have known that Queen's Blood would have been the same. I thought that it might have got you too, but should have known.
No,
It was a
dude,
damn
I
card
got
game. I'm not down with that.
I've got cloud syndrome of that event. Like it's just a blur. It's just trauma. It's this shady, cloudy trauma. But anyway,
Are we done yet?
it was horrible, miserable experience.
so
But anyway, yeah.
So you get Queen's Blood cards. You leave the hotel, and like the hotel manager mentions you should go to the bookstore, but outside of leaving the hotel, like you're like greeted by Red, and he's thanking you for saving him during remake and promises to accompany the party. So at that point, he officially joins the party. So not only did they introduce Queen's Blood, then when they started, I think your next interactions with Aerith, and that's when they started introducing like the different relationship effects, which I don't think I really caught on to at first because I don't remember because I think you talked to Aerith first, and like I don't know if it's necessarily considered a date, but like she offers like for Cloud to join her up in the clock tower, and then I went from like talking to her to like talking to Tifa afterwards. I remember something that like I said the wrong thing, something popped up, and I was like, oh no, I made a mistake. But like, cause I didn't completely understand like what that system was, and I'm pretty sure it popped up as a tutorial, but I don't remember reading it. So yeah, like you also you get the relationship stuff, and then you also get the folios, cause like somewhere in the midst of these conversations, like you go into the bookstore, and I'll be honest, there's certain aspects of that skill tree that I'm not really a fan of. Like there were a few of those options where it's like, oh, like you get this to make this synergy better, and to some extent, there was like so much going on that I couldn't ever keep track of like which ones I had or didn't have, or which ones I needed, or which ones would work together. So I was pretty much just going for like anything that gave me new abilities or something like.
Yeah, I almost think that skill tree is made more for your second playthrough than your first. Because the first time through the game, I even getting to the end of the game, like I felt like I was just trying to get to the top to unlock like the highest abilities. But like I would skip over certain things. Like I just didn't know what to allot to certain characters. Like giving certain characters magic that doesn't take away from their MP and whatnot. Like I didn't really know how to allocate a lot of it. So I was just like, well, I'm playing with these three characters, so I'll like make sure that I unlock the synergies that play with those few characters. And then as it got further on, I'm playing with totally different characters, and I don't know. I think what I figured out about it was like, okay, I think whenever I'm playing through this a second time, I'm gonna care more about like a lot of how I end up piecing my characters together, because I've definitely limped through the game on their whole whatever they called that skill tree. I definitely wasn't setting it up the way I needed to.
Like they had it color coded for like different types of upgrades. And I can't remember what each color was, but I know like the purple ones were like the ones that I guess like increased synergy efficiency between certain characters or whatever. Those are the ones like were like the smallest priority. Like I was the main ones I went to was like any of them that gave me a new ability or opened up like a different materia or strength or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that whole system was a little much.
Yeah. It was one of probably the weaker elements in the game. One of the few weaker elements. I mean, honestly, they could have just tied all those ability unlocks and skill boosts to leveling or the weapon leveling system. It didn't really need its own little sphere grid, to have those, because you knew the abilities. You knew the abilities you wanted from it, but it didn't. I don't know. I don't have strong feelings on it, but it's certainly some of the things where I was like, oh, I've got 25 points, but I need to go remember to do that next time at one of these vending machines, And then you're just kind of like, just trying to figure out what's the quickest path to get like a good limit break or a synergy attack.
Yeah.
So
I felt like it was probably like people that are like super into all that meticulous stuff probably had a heyday with it, but like it almost made me feel too dumb for it. I was like, I don't even know who I'm gonna play with enough in this game, like to know how I want to build them. Like I don't know how I want to build each character yet. So, and even by the time, like I think you could respec at a certain point, but I didn't really mess with it too much. I did like to unlock a lot of the synergies with different characters though, because I thought those were a lot of fun.
They were awesome. Yeah. I didn't even realize at first that there were synergies in there. So I was like, oh wait, there's a move between Aerith and Kate Sith. Yeah. I was like, well, I've been sleeping on this. And I was like, I could have been using that for, but frankly, I don't think they gave you enough points to be able to, like, they didn't consistently give you opportunities to earn points. And when you got those like books or whatever they were, give you like 10 points. I'm like, what a weird way to give you bonus points for a character. I don't know. It was fine. It wasn't bad. It just was a system that I wasn't really invested into compared to all the others. So.
That the part you mentioned that kind of came a little formulaic later on, where it's like you'd find those books because it would be specifically, oh well, I can only play as this character right now, so I'm going to find one of those here soon. So it kind of gave you opportunity to like kind of predict when you were going to get the next one.
Like at a certain point later in the game, when you get one of those books and gives you 10 points, that's not giving you anything for that character. If you've already spent all your points on just dumb shit with them, like, it gives you 10 points. It's like, well, I can't do anything with this. I got to wait until I get like 2 more books.
Dude, yes, you nailed it. That happens. That like every 30 minutes I was playing.
Yeah.
Let me go over here. Up, nope, 5 point shy. We'll come back. Well, hopefully I'll remember.
My New Game Plus playthrough, I'm just not going to load points into a character until I'm like, okay, I'm going to play with this character now. I'm adding them to my party. How do I want to build them? Just start from the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. So where were we?
So from there, after you talk to all the team members, get folios introduced. That's when
Folio, that's what it is.
That's when Shinra starts to swarm and go through a full stealth mission through the city. And I don't always. Those have to be done fairly well for me to get immersed in them, because there's definitely certain situations where like you're walking on like a scaffold above the street where the guys are walking under it, and it's like, how in the hell did they not see you? Like there's some of those that are like totally unbelievable, where it's like there's no way this is stealth. Anyway, you get from there, you get back to the hotel where the hotel manager opens up the tunnel underground where you meet back up with the rest of the team. Then you break out into the grasslands where open world's officially made available. So yeah, I remember once I got to this point, I probably spent another hour or two just like running around in this opening area before continuing on to any of the story. And I remember searching like quite a bit of it before I opened up the map, and I'm like, and this is like a quarter of like just this one area, if not more, or if not less. But because that's one thing. That's one thing is like this open world is huge, even though you can't necessarily connect all of it just yet.
The fact that it
Like that.
is like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
that, yeah, like the open world. I personally liked how big it was. Like they they turned a 40-hour game into a fucking just ginormous. Like every area was. I mean, it. You can say that it's got those Ubisoft elements to it, where you unlock.
Bit, yeah.
Yeah, but to me, it's a world that I want to immerse that in. So like I was fine with it. So like it just depends on how you look at it. But I personally, I loved how, you open the grasslands probably was my least favorite area, to be honest. Like open world wise, and that might be because it's so far in the rear view that like I completed it and it was the first open world area. So like I was getting my, catching traction there and like running around. I'd like Brandon, like I ran around and I think I completed that area before I really started trying to push any story missions. And I mean it definitely got the ball rolling on how I felt for the rest of the game. Like I loved getting to the next area and being like, holy crap, this place is just as big as the last place and I've got all this. I don't know. It took a long time for me to start feeling any fatigue from that. Yeah. I'll say.
Yeah. I also think the open world areas got better. Each one, for the most part, felt better than the last.
Upgrading your chocobo, getting a chocobo with a different ability or something in every area was refreshing.
All those baby chocobos, dude. It's like the cutest thing.
Dude, Cloud Jr.
Oh. Well, yeah. I love when you go to pick up those posts near the chocobo stands or whatever they're called, but if you don't lift it up all the way, that you don't hold triangle long enough and you go to set it down and the chocobo just deflates and just is like distraught that you didn't set up the fast travel point. It's the cutest thing. Those chocobos. Usually I'm not so much a sucker for that stuff. Like I can look at a Moogle and not feel too much. Yeah. But like that baby chocobo.
They
was
have
just
like
so
little
damn
Togepi
exciting.
egg butts too. I love like they've got still part of their shell
Yeah.
on them. I love that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're adorable, man. Yeah.
So from there, like once you do continue on the story, you run into Bill, which is the guy who you pretty much hitched a ride with from Midgar into Calm. And turns out he owns that Chocobo Ranch that you now need a Chocobo to cross over the lake with.
Mhm.
And I don't, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't in the original when I went to play it. I don't remember much dialogue mentioning you need the Chocobo other than you get out into the open world and the Chocobo Ranch is like the only thing that's there as far as like what's on the map. Other than that, it's just like random battle encounters.
Yeah, you have to train them. You have to like get them and battle it down to where you've just got a chocobo, and then you got to give it the greens, and it ended up
Sucks.
being pretty annoying. Yeah, it was pretty annoying to
Yeah.
like train one and get one. Um, but it was a lot better than trying to fight that damn snake early on.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's snake.
I ran into it on accident
Yeah,
and
yeah. You think you can outrun it?
didn't last very long. Yeah, I almost made it all the way across.
Yeah, it lets you think that you can.
But so then this opens up. I don't know if I would call it a mini game per se, but definitely a little side content for each area to unlock the chocobo for each area. And glad it was like a lot easier catching it in this game than it was the original.
I yeah. Um,
It took a
but
minute to know like what the boundaries and what the limits are because there was definitely parts of it where you could kind of cheese it and get away with certain things. But
there were some parts of taming chocobos later in this game that I could have done away with.
oh yeah, there's like one specific
The
one.
chocobo stealth missions might be the lowest point of the game for me.
Yeah, when we get to it, we'll talk about it. But there was like one specific one that I'm with you on that, and there wasn't like any explanation on like what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I got stuck on it for a while, but
Yeah.
So there you get the mission with the chocobo. You meet Bill's grandkids. So I think you spend a little bit of time there in the farm. Chadley opens you up, like it's where you meet Chadley again from Remake, and you go over the battle intel towers. All that before you go into the lake, which becomes the second and next boss fight of the game, where you fight at least in that was one thing that they kind of changed from the original, where in the original you got to that area and Sephiroth's just already killed the Midgard Swarmer. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, there's just a tiny little cutscene in the original that just shows it posted on a stake.
Yeah.
Right outside, and you only get it that first time you walk up to the mithril mine or whatever, and it'll just do that one little quick cutscene of it just posted up on the stake, and this one you get to see it get.
Yeah.
It's just totally impaled. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
That fight was great too.
It was
against the snake. I can't. I'm trying to remember the track and what it sounded like, but at one point I feel like bass hitting in the background and the music in that fight, and it was awesome. The pace of that.
Yeah, the whole like, I don't know, just turning a like early on boss fight in 7 into this like whole cinematic, like staged fight was really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And the cutscene afterwards is really good too. So like once you defeat it, like you'll get a cutscene of it grabbing Cloud and dragging him under the water, as he's getting close to drowning, like Sephiroth appears and pretty much kills it in one slice, and it's like a whole whirlpool of water that like sends it up onto the spike.
Yeah.
So then Cloud does kind of drown at that point, and when he wakes up, like, they just notice, like, I think this might be the first instance too, of where they see the cloaked figures, like, walking past, and they decide to start trailing them off, and that ends the second chapter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
About right. What summon do you get in that area? Was that still Titan, or I don't remember. I guess it's not important.
The next area. I don't think it was Titan.
I thought there was one right around there. But, you know, I can't remember. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. How did y'all feel about, like, we can go ahead and get feelings about Chadley and his new AI companion.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Chadley. Y'all first.
I wish you could turn it off because it plays through like the controller and everything, which is cool the first couple times it does it.
Yeah, but as soon as you get to one of those fights that has a mechanic that, you know, kind of sucks, and you got to revisit it a few times, you're like, all right, bitch, shut up, stop coming through my controller.
Man, what's hilarious about that is there was a patch for like the PS5 firmware update right around the time the game got launched. I don't know if y'all read it, but Sony used AI to improve the volume of the speaker. So I remember walking in the living room, Randy was playing it, and I was like, God, that's loud. It was like screaming. Chadley was just barking orders out of that controller. And I was like, how is that so loud? I was like, it's never been that loud before. I don't know, the controllers just had this update and went online and read it. So anyway, it was perfect timing for those shenanigans.
Console to get an update to make the controller louder. It's like, hey, this thing game just came out that has a lot of these features.
Out. Yeah.
I want to make sure you hear it.
AKA Judgment Day. Glorious.
The bickering back and forth between him and what's her name? Maya? Is it? I can't remember her name. May?
Yeah.
I don't know I don't remember if it introduces her here or not. Whenever you meet up with him first time, but what his Cortana or whatever we want to call her, like,
he is Cortana. That's funny.
No, he created his own Cortana. It's Cortana that created Cortana.
Man, they were the manifestation of contempt towards each other too, which I think.
Yeah.
But anyway,
just their bickering back and forth though is like, how far is this gonna go? And they held on to it.
Yeah, not far enough.
I do like where his story goes. It does
Pinocchio.
give. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good
I
stuff.
like Chadley. Besides his really passive aggressive attitude towards you, like, hey, I couldn't help but notice, you know, your environmental research of late has been lacking, but I'm sure you'll pick up on it. I was like, wow, this is the most HR-approved conversation I've gotten in years. It's so just like laced with threats.
He guilted you for not doing enough, but it's like, dude, I have stepped on every inch of this whole continent. My feet have touched every blade of grass. I have fought every type of enemy. I have cleared all the mini games, but because I haven't come to you and done all your little challenges, you're making me like you're the one that casts the judgment.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to be like, listen, I want the Magnify Materia as much as you want me to have it. I promise you. Like, dude, there's nothing I want more than to cast Cure on everybody at the same time. But
six of them. Give me more than just one or two.
It was that Magnify Materia is like the orichalcum of the game as far as I'm concerned. I was just like, really I got one of these. I played this thing for 100 hours. I got one Magnify, and I'm probably not even using it right. But anyway, yeah, good old Chadley. I think he's the real final boss. So
I like him, but I almost like I'm I kind of question, like in the lore, like what he is, because like he was created by Shinra, correct? Like
He's Hojo's
yeah.
backdoor project that's eventually going to bite us in the ass. What I
Yeah,
think.
that's kind of what I'm, because he's
Too
kind of
much,
been
dude.
the
AI,
guide.
he's AI that learns everything and completely understands you and knows your algorithm to where one day he's going to be the epitome of why that's bad.
Yeah,
Why that's a bad thing.
yeah. I mean, like
So
he plays
funny.
that
I love this.
guide. He plays that guide for the players through the game to an extent, but like he is created by Shinra, so like how much free will does he actually have?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's bound to be a problem that I can't wait to experience in part 3 or some DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna be like Skynet, just dodging every move, a countermeasure for every single attack you have.
He's
Thank you for all the
Kathleen
data.
GPT, dude.
Yeah, yeah. No, I really did enjoy his passive aggressive attitude. But sometimes you're like, wow, like I just gotta skip through some of this dialogue. But yeah. But
Like,
anyway,
I just got done doing 10 of your missions and I went and did one thing and came back to talk to you and you're going to treat me like this? Like, okay.
yeah, it's pretty unappreciative overall, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from
So we're
here,
at chapter 3.
Yeah, chapter 3. You see as they're following these rogue figures into the mithril mines, and I think this chapter's fairly short for the most part, but there's like part of this where it's like kind of absurd but brutal at the same time, where like you're following these rogue figures, like you see them like cross this bridge, and then just like the ground collapses beneath them, and like so they potentially die. I don't know. I don't, because there's so many of them. I don't know if these specific ones died or if there's more. But
I think they go back to the live stream and respawn somewhere else.
yeah,
I think
potentially.
Like
I
that
think you
theory.
just spawn them in.
Oh
So like
man.
at this point, like Cloud's like insisting that they just like keep moving, but like the rest of the party wants to like go down and check on them. So that's kind of like where your in story. That's where your party gets split here in this chapter. And at that point, I think you have control of Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith. And then, which leads into our next boss fight. Like throughout this mine, they run into Elena and Rude. So what did you guys think about this interaction?
Elena's a new character, right?
No, she was in the original.
Was she?
Yeah.
She just didn't stand out to me as much. Maybe I'm not remembering right.
She's,
Because she's so spunky that like
she's a
she
new
just seems
member of the
fresh.
Turks, though.
Okay.
Like she's like a trainer or trainee.
The fight was fun. I didn't know that I was going to get tired of fighting them at a certain point, but like, I mean, the first round of fighting them was good. I much more enjoyed Barrett's side of the Mithril Mine than like this part. It's more memorable fighting the boss that you get to fight as Barrett.
Yeah, for sure.
With
Remember
Barrett
being-
in red.
But as with all these Turk fights, you know, something happens to split it up. So then at that point, before anybody's beat, Sung appears above and shoots the robe figures before turning the gun at Barrett. And at that point, they suggest that they stay out of each other's way and Sung asked Cloud to take care of Aerith, and ground collapses beneath the party while the Turks escape. And at this point, the party becomes separated again, and this time you have control of Barrett and Red. Which, yeah, I'm with you, Barrett, on this. Like, their part
That,
of it was better.
yeah, that giant E fight was just a really pretty, fun fight. Like it was beautiful. I think that's the first boss in the game that stood out. Well, other than the Midgard Stormer, like I remember being in that fight with Barrett and Red, being like, "This is just beautiful. It's awesome." I mean, you're basically playing. Uh, I think I compared it to. Um, what's the dwarf game that Noah's obsessed with? I can't think of the name of it right now. Deep Rock Galactic, where you're shooting crystals off the wall and mining. Like it just had that, like you're shooting all the crystals for stuff, and
Yeah. Yeah, go
but
ahead. I gotta get a
yeah,
charger real quick, but go ahead.
yeah, you're good.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that
I'm trying to
fight was
remember
just
this part.
the Mithril Golem.
The Mithril Golem. Let me see this guy.
Yeah, yeah, he just looked really
Yeah,
cool. It was a super fun fight. I didn't expect to have as much fun playing as like mainly Barrett.
gosh, I'm like blanking on this fight. Like I know it happened. It looks familiar, but I must have just tore through that chapter or something. It was not. I guess overall it was not.
After.
Yeah, it wasn't one of the more memorable for me. I do remember struggling with a fight against the Turks, like more than I expected to. Like it wasn't that I couldn't. I think I beat it first, maybe second try, but they were a lot tougher than I expected them to be, especially after getting like the Titan summon. I want to say, or whatever that first summon was you get in that area. But yeah, it was definitely fun. I mean, the whole game's fun, right? So. But a lot of that was added, right? Like that wasn't in the original. Navigating through the mines, I want to say.
It was.
I don't
It
know.
wasn't the original, but like I don't. There wasn't as much to it. Like the mines were such a short part. I feel like it was just to get to the other part of the map, so you could go to the next area, so you get to Junon. So, but like, yeah, I do remember. Like, I really don't remember Elena in the original game. It's like I can see her sprite, I guess, but like I remember Reno Ruden's song the most. But
Yeah.
I do remember going through the mines, but it's a short part. It's a short thing that you don't ever have to revisit because eventually you get the buggy and you don't have to go back to it.
Yeah. Which I think everybody likes Reno the most, and I feel like they like artificially like sidelined him in this game until
Well,
later
I
on.
heard that the Japanese voice actor passed away, so
Yeah.
they didn't do as much with him, maybe because of that.
That could be it.
I think as far as the Turks, I do like Reno a lot. He's a great character. I like Sung a lot too, and this game reminded me of that. And I liked him a lot because of his role in Crisis Core. Um, and I want him to give Zach his fucking letters. So, um, yeah, I did like that moment where with like Sung telling Cloud to look after Aerith because we've got bigger fish to fry right now. We're not worried about you. The ancients taken care of. We got other things to worry about right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that chapter wasn't super memorable for me. There's some cool stuff in it, but some cool fights, but overall
For me,
it's
that
really
chapter is the Mithril Golem fight. And to be completely honest, I can't remember too much of what I loved about that fight other than I mean, it made some sort of impact on me. I was like, this is a cool fight. This is I can't remember the mechanics to the fight of what made me love it, but something about it stood out, and I do remember it being pretty cool.
For me, it was kind of like because I'd played with Red a little bit in the open world, but I think it was like one of the first like bigger fights. Controlling Red.
Yeah. That might have been it too, because I ended up keeping Red as part of my party for a while after this fight. I was like, oh, okay, he's fun to play with. I love that like spin slam that he does.
Yeah.
Just where's that put us?
So now we're at the. So after they leave the mines, they emerge outside Junon, which leads into chapter 4. And more specifically under Junon, as a certain Wutai member journey collides with Cloud and company. And
Yes.
so
Sorry. Go ahead.
finding the once again one of the more like absurd but like brutal aspects of it, like leading into this, like you see like all these rogue figures lined up going into Junon, but at one point just this giant bird swoops down and grabs one of them and like flies away with it.
They're just cannon fodder at this point in the game.
They are.
It's like...
So
well, you get to town and you meet Rhonda.
Yeah, just before town, you meet Rhonda, which is the mayor and the sheriff, and she like recognizes right away that you're Avalanche and that you're wanted, but reassures you that like you're safe there, and she describes that the Turks have already been through, but the elevator up to Junon, Upper Junon is heavily guarded. So at that point you're kind of like split to, I guess, venture into what little of the city you can. I know there's a particular side content that I know I enjoyed, but I don't know about you two as much. I know we've talked about it a little bit.
Let's talk about it again.
But the
frogs?
The frog mini game, I really liked it. At least the battle aspect of it. Now there was like the whole the platforming area of it was a little difficult.
What did you like about the battle? I can't get my head around it, dude. Like,
I don't know. It's just like the
the
novelty of it just being silly.
Yeah, and also like each of the toads being like modeled after the character and maintaining like the likenesses of each character was fun.
Cool.
Like the introduction to Toad was good, but the whole mini game, like I'm gonna talk a lot about how much I loved certain mini games and stuff. But like the mini game it introduced after the fact, where you're like jumping over the spinning things, and then they change direction, and then you got different ones going different directions.
That one sucked.
That can fuck right off. Like I absolutely hated that mini game. I played it. It was like I had already thought I'm like, I've conquered Queen's Blood. I'm good at probably at this point good Fort Condor. Like there's just all this great content. You get to the frogs, you're like, well, this one's not really that fucking good. Hopefully it's not all like this. Hopefully this isn't the start of the downward spiral of me not liking the mini games in this game. And thankfully it wasn't. Like I hit very other like little walls of dislike, but the Toad game I did not revisit. I quit quickly. I didn't try and go for the third tier. I don't even think I may have gotten the first tier item that you get from it and was like, that's good enough. I'm done.
Yeah.
That was the only one I did. I gave up the quickest on the Toad game.
There were some of those that were a little more difficult where I'm like, okay, the reward they're giving is not worth continuing.
It was the green check mark next to it that I was worried about more than the reward. I couldn't tell you what I got for 90% of the mini games. I don't know. It was like Dark Matter
Dude.
was like the third thing that you'd get, and I didn't care. It was that little green check mark saying like this is done.
Yes,
That's what I wanted.
exactly.
And this
That's
game
what
is a
dude-
completionist nightmare.
Oh, dude, amen. Because that's what I was gonna say is that frog mini game taught
This showed
me
me I wasn't.
dude,
Don't go.
it taught me a brutal lesson. That like okay, so I did get the top tier like of that mini game after just like losing my mind for like an hour on it, just being like I gotta do this.
Mini game top tier thing.
Yeah, on the frog one, yeah. Like I was determined. And like I literally learned a technique to like beat it, and I think I broke like past 10 seconds past or something what you needed to get after I figured it out. But then afterwards, just being like
mini games, they all kind of had that learning curve to them.
Well, and they all have some third tier nonsense that goes into a sixth tier nonsense at post game. But it made me realize, like, wait, what did I get for doing this? And I was like, oh no, like I could buy this down the road in the game or something, usually with that item. But yeah, I regret afterwards. I was like, no, I won't be doing that again with like any of the other mini games. Like it's all going to be dependent. But I'm like, I'm not platinuming in this game. Like I knew at that moment I would platinum it.
I'm glad that I didn't call it there. I think if I would have spent too much time on that mini game, that I wouldn't have given any of the other ones the amount of time that I did.
Yeah, it was that check mark. It was the check mark. That's what it came down to. Yeah.
I mean, eventually I'll go back and get that damn check mark. I'm looking at it.
I believe in you.
But yeah, it definitely wasn't a highlight of the game. It was early. I remember being early on, like, yeah, that's not a winner.
Yeah, but Junon, I'll say, Junon as a whole was one of the more diverse environments. I thought between like the wrecked ship and the chocobos that can climb up the wall. Sorry if I'm getting into spoiler territory, but the chocobos climbing up the walls and stuff, and some of the side quests. Spoiler alert. That's right. We've got the flag. Oh, sorry. I was just checking the chat and I saw someone doing this. So I was like, oh no, they got me. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm caught up now. But anyway, it was a great environment. I thought with some really cool side quests.
Yeah, it was nice to like be like, okay, we're gonna get chocobos with like different stuff. It was like the first, like, all the climbing stuff. I don't know, I thought it was neat. It wasn't my favorite chocobo, but I was happy that I was like, okay, we're getting a chocobo with like a different ability here. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
I
think I remember dolphins.
Yeah. So
what?
Where we're at this
the
point?
Game.
So sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
So where an NPC leads us to there's something going on in the harbor, right?
Yeah. So then we get down there and you get a cutscene where Yuffie's in the rowboat on the water and knocked out of the boat, but hitches ride on the dolphin while unconscious and brought back to shore. And this
Thank God.
Directly
Almost lost her. Could have been over quick.
And this, I think this directly leads into like the next boss fight with the Terror of the Deep, which is pretty cool.
Okay, boss fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the best part of it was at the very end where like Cloud kind of like teams up with the dolphin to like land like the final strike on it.
Yeah.
There were
definitely cinematics, like ending cinematics to boss fights that kind of saved the whole fight to me. It was like the best part of it was when it was over and you got like a really badass cutscene of it just getting fucking slaughtered. Like you run into HP to 0 and then you get to see something cool, like really just nailing that final the final strike.
Yeah.
I will say though that this boss fight, like it being flying or like up in the air, it was one of the first ones. Like I probably did it a few times where like I didn't understand what I was supposed to do before I realized that like you could like use your dodge button and then attack, and it would like
Yep.
vault you up in
Yeah.
there.
Cloud has aerial combos now. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So
Yeah,
there's
it took
been
me a while to understand how those worked, but once I did, it was really nice.
Yeah, there's been a few moments where, like, even in Remake and then certain parts in Rebirth where, like, I felt like I was playing, like, certain parts of the game wrong until I got to parts like this where it actually put some of those mechanics to use. And I felt like I was actually learning something new or different.
Yeah.
This is why Barrett in the game had such a close relationship to Cloud, because I would just switch to him and do his long range attacks on anything. I ain't gonna try to do these aerial combos.
Yeah.
I was like, we're doing Lifesaver and Steel Skin, and we're calling it a day. And that's basically what I did for like 80% of the game, and I felt great about it too.
And see, I didn't really learn that method until later on either.
Yeah, that's what made me. I kept Barrett in my party like the whole game, dude. Me and him were tight. Like he was carrying me. I was like, it's Cloud. I almost couldn't play without him at a certain point until I got Yuffie. You know, just because I needed a ranged character to be able to switch to, just to take out some of these annoying enemies.
As much as I like Barrett's character, he's least him and Kate Sith by the end were probably my least used party members. Just
Why do you think
as far
that
as like
is?
their utility. I don't know. I think maybe towards the end I used Barrett more because he had like I learned with him I could use that overshot and fill his ATB real fast, and he would just be like I don't know. I don't know why.
Yeah.
There were just more characters I wanted to use. I wanted to use in the beginning of the game it was Aerith and Red 13. That was my favorite. Cloud, Aerith, and Red 13. And I held on to that for a long time. And then I learned that, like, I love Yuffie's character, but then I learned that Yuffie, utility-wise, after having to do a certain mini game later on, I was like, she is the MVP of the game.
Oh,
and
dude.
This is also fresh off the heels of, like, I played the interlude or intermission because I didn't complete it until, like, right before Rebirth came out. And I loved her in it, but they did change her up a little bit. They took away they changed how she fights and stuff. So, like, I think I'd just, starting the game and having variety, like, I didn't automatically throw her into the mix of, like, what I wanted to use. But later on, after using, like, certain abilities and certain weapons with her, I was like, yeah, she's the shit. She is so much fun to use.
Yeah. And the Stagger Gog you could fill up so quick because of her elemental attacks, you know.
Nick, do you want coffee?
Who's asking?
Brandy.
Oh. Sure. Yeah, I'll take some coffee.
Get that
And
going.
some nuts.
These?
There's a competition now. The coffee off. But anyway, yeah.
But yeah, so
sorry, where were we
we did a whole introduction with Yuffie, which I absolutely loved. I love this
love Yuffie.
little. Yeah, she's great. They took a character that was like a side character that people latched onto just to not have a favorite that's a main character, in my opinion. And they gave her so much personality in this. It's perfect. And the way that she challenges each party member throughout the game is just awesome. Barrett and Yuffie's initial interaction, like, is still one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, I'm not sure about this one. And then he kind of like mimics her.
I'm still trying to figure out like the child endangerment principles that may or may not be. Like, I cannot figure out. Yuffie could be anywhere from like 13 to like 35 years old. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
I want to say she's like 17.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I want to say she's 17. I hope that she's at least 18 for certain reasons.
Well, I think I know what you actually mean. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But like,
But yeah, no, I agree. Like she could be. There's a variety. There is a variety, but this is
loved how she had
5
no
years
filter.
after Crisis Core,
Yeah.
allegedly, right? And in Crisis Core, she's a young kid.
Hmm.
And there's a whole interaction there. So like, I'm gonna bet that she's 16 or 17 in this game.
Hey,
I
Joe
don't know. There
Budden.
might be an actual answer, but anyways, her character dynamic that she introduces to the party is just like great.
I thought she was just hilarious. Like her dialogue was so
Yeah.
well written throughout the game.
Nothing
And
that was like she could be a character that's easily cheesy and an eye roller at times with some of her dialogue, but it all landed fantastically.
yeah. And then also she was so loyal. Like that's something that stuck out to me, right? Like she didn't have a filter. She was gonna be like she was on Barrett's side. Well, I won't get too far ahead, but she was on certain characters' sides, like when nobody else was, and she didn't care that she didn't have all the information. And I just ended up respecting the heck out of that. So she didn't care. I don't care what he did. Like I got his back. You're not gonna be mean to him, type of thing. So yeah, she was a great character. Especially when you think like I thought her story in Interlude was really good. But yeah, from she definitely was one of the MVPs I kept in my party most of the game.
According to thegamer.com, she was 16.
Okay.
Well, you know.
It didn't go too far, so it's fine.
Yeah. They didn't get too weird in the game.
All these ages are kind of interesting, though. Looking at it,
Cloud's what, 25?
21.
Tifa and Cloud are both 20 and 21, respectively.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because
Aerith
makes
is
sense.
22.
Ish.
Barrett's 35.
He's got those "when I was your age" conversation quotes, so that makes
So
sense.
Barrett's how old?
35.
35.
Sephiroth is
I don't know.
only 27 to
Add
30.
10. Yeah,
in that age
right.
range. Zach is 23, and that's all we know at this point, character-wise. All the Turks are like between 25 and 30.
I don't know, man. Some of these people got mileage on them because they don't look 20, 21. Give me a break.
It's that, hey man, it's that new age water that they're drinking. It's like, wow,
That
they look way
Mako
older than-
water.
Oh, they are.
Or Mako. But yeah, so there was the boss fight. Yuffie gets introduced.
But
And
she's still not introduced to the party yet. She's asking for
Yeah.
she asked to join, but you know they kind of brush her off.
Yeah, they don't take her seriously. And Barrett, I can't remember what the mockery is, but Barrett even kind of like mocks how she's acting, her little like teenage, like she is just a whole different generation from him. He's like, I don't know.
So then at this point they all go back to the inn for the night, and that Cloud overhears Aerith talking to somebody in her room, and then it's a little bit later it's like revealed to be Red leaving her room. And
Oh yeah, that was weird as. Yeah, that's the part I'm thinking about.
You already got
started
your
getting real. Yeah.
Huh.
Mine's not ground by hand though, so you know there's that.
Kanan's in there literally like mortar and pestle.
I know she's probably watering the beans on the vine right now, but it's still good.
It is. I do. That part is weird out of context, but
is it this? I don't know. I think
can't
maybe
remember when
the
it
part you're
introduced
talking about later
connection
on.
between Aerith and there's a really good connection between Aerith and Red. I don't remember when it.
I think that one's in Costa del Sol.
Okay.
But it starts alluding regardless to the relationship that Aerith and Red, for whatever reason, have, which I'm not saying doesn't make sense, but I was kind of like, what? This is a new storyline that I don't
Yeah, like he
Remember,
just
I'm
got
not picking
here.
up
What
on-
are y'all? What's going on?
Yeah, it was weird. I just didn't know what was going on. It just was a mystery.
That was like to us. That was almost like their first interaction.
Mm-hmm.
They're like
Yeah.
in a room
But
together.
I mean, some people are just dog people, though. You know.
Yeah, because like even in the first game, I don't know that they necessarily covered that there's like any overlap of them being captured at the same time.
It's a good point, though.
Yeah.
You're both captive.
Mm.
They actually have a lot in common, actually. If you
So
think
that's what I was
about
going to say.
but,
And even
well,
if they weren't there together or at the time, they at least had that similar experience of kind of like
Thank you.
growing up there
Nick already had his
initially.
Thanks.
what did you say? Flip you off.
The and ground.
But
No, they've got a connection to the whole like etheric,
the ancient, ancient
Yeah.
world and the spirituality and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking too. You know.
They're just talking about that. It's fine. It's nothing weird.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. In hindsight, I guess it's whatever. But
Yeah. At the time, though, it is like a. What are y'all talking about? What could y'all possibly be talking about?
Well, at this
Yeah,
point, did we hear the different voice? Because like,
No,
Not
that
yet.
yeah, that one didn't happen. Really.
Chapter 9, brother.
Oh,
Sorry,
brother.
not 9. Chapter 10.
No,
Whenever we hit.
there's at one point where you kind of overhear, like, I don't know if it's in Costa del Sol or if it's this one, but you overhear her talking to somebody, and you hear his voice, but you don't know that it's him yet.
Yeah, it's in Del Sol.
I don't remember picking up on that.
Yeah, Cloud kicks in the door or whatever and is like, "Who are you talking to?" And I was like, "Oh, I just read, But we're getting ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, this is another one. This is another
That's why we
one of
got these
those.
rails.
Yeah. This is another one of those points where like you can go around and talk to all the different team members and increase relationship status.
Oh yeah.
But
That's right.
at the very end of it, you go upstairs to go to your room, and then you run into Tifa, and that kicks off a little bonding moment between the two where they, I guess she's like questioning Cloud about his past or what he remembers from his childhood. But I guess it ended up being like a test, so to speak, to see how much he actually remembered.
Yeah,
I want to read
Joe
this
Budden.
comment from Joe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's saying the voice changes in the original, even though people have a problem with how it actually sounds, which we'll probably talk more about that whenever we get to the that chapter. But I do remember his demeanor changing and how he acted. Like the way he started using, like he went from using like big smart words to, almost acting more childlike through text. But it's easy to misinterpret that. But I was expecting some sort of change from him. But that is a jarring. It was a jarring voice change. But that actor, hats off to him. It's fantastic that that's one dude that can have that amount of range.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
ended up being
I don't know if
okay
you're
with it.
I don't know if you were going to mention something else that Joe said, because I know he's got a lot to.
Oh, Joe, you made the point that the voice changes in the original. I don't know if, maybe his behavior wasn't changed, but I don't know if they literally.
I don't remember they say like,
that
"Oh,
his
you
voice is
sound
different.
different." I remember that
it was just the
he goes
different. Is this like the different diction and like the way
he spoke?
Yeah.
The way he talked was not as like intelligent. Like it's almost like he tried to act more intelligent up until that point, and then he kind of backtracked and he spoke more like
Like it wasn't voiced, so we didn't actually hear it, but it was just the way the dialogue was written did change.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's something that the Japanese, the way that they write,
Okay.
it can describe a lot better how that is.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, because I was thinking like I don't think his accent
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah, I'm
But
aware
you're
of
saying
that.
it did.
It's like the way that they can bring that to life. It's almost like the same thing we're saying with a lot of these characters and bringing them to life. Like it just like it puts.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
get
know.
context just from the updated technology, and how they're able to portray it artistically and stuff. So no, that's really cool. I mean, I'll be honest,
Yeah.
whether or not that had been in the original, I like it grew on me. Like I thought it was a bold choice based off of how we understood, and at least in the States, how they did the original.
Very
But
bold.
anyway, we're getting way ahead of what chapter we're at. So we can pick back up on that.
Yeah.
I remember marching band next, but there's probably more that happened.
Yeah, I can't remember how much more Junon we've got before we start getting to all the great, like the 7th Infantry.
Well, I mean, directly after that,
Yeah,
like,
you really start picking up there too. But anyway, go ahead.
like the next morning after that happens with Cloud and Tifa, like that's when Yuffie actually gathers the group and is like explaining her history with Wu Tai and her contract to assassinate Rufus during the parade. Leaving the hotel from there is when Rose shows up and monologues that he's kind of there to take Aerith, but decides that his fight with Cloud needs to be on a bigger stage, so he rides away.
I do like Roche.
Me too. Yeah,
I think he's a great,
he's a cool
great
addition. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, we need that character that's working for Shinra that is blindly doing what they see to be right, but has the respect for our protagonist, that he ends up having.
Yeah, and I think in some ways he kind of plays like a mirror to like Cloud. In some ways.
Yeah, and Zack. Like,
not only
Yeah,
because of his outcome, but just like I guess a totally like not bad, but like you said, just like following what Shinra wants him to do.
mhm.
But so he leaves the scene, and then the team's discussing how they actually can get up to the parade, because right now the elevator's guarded. So this is when they devise the plan to hitch this ride with this dolphin. It's gonna magically like launch him. What? I mean, 40,
50 feet in
50
the air.
stories up in there. It
Oh
seems
yeah,
like,
even higher. It's crazy.
which works.
What a
Like,
great plan.
I think it took me a few times of like doing that little mini game to like hit it just right. Oh yeah, it was in the original. In the original, I remember it being difficult
Yeah, I remember that.
because it was like so hard to tell exactly where you were at in order to interact with everything.
Joe Budson, it's like it's in the original. Like all that stuff that they just over dramatized. It's an over dramatized but perfectly done version of what's in the original. Like I can't complain about any of that stuff. I think they hit home.
Yeah. I
Even
love
with
that
their
they kept
bold-
it even.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I think I was making the same point you are. It's like I love that they kept it. They could have made it like they could have gone
could
the
have gone
Advent
a very
Children
different way.
path. Yeah, like Advent Children. When I think about that movie, like they kind of cut out a lot of the whimsical. There was like no whimsical in that movie. Maybe there's a couple
Yeah.
parts, but overall it was very like, hey, this is kind of how it really happened, and it's super serious and all
Yeah.
that. But they didn't go that route, and I like love that they didn't go that
They
route.
didn't go
They were
the
like,
overly hardcore cool route. They went,
Yeah.
this can be fun and lighthearted and still awesome because, like he's
exactly.
saying, it's like how you remembered it as a kid, the way you pictured it, but fully realized. Like
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then
that dolphin.
we kind of
I
get
think Adding
into
Children, though, arguably is the beginning of Rebirth, though.
yeah.
Mm,
Then we kind of like once they actually get up
maybe.
to the fleet or whatever, it starts going into like a little bit more absurdist territory where like all these people are already being hunted,
Yeah.
but yet
Everyone
they're
knows
just
an
walking around
avalanche is.
freely up there and like nobody recognizes them.
Yeah. Under Junon down there, they keep to their own and they protect their people, but we know who y'all are. But Shinra people are running around like, sir. You
Yeah.
know?
So they're this is like before they get their disguises and everything. They're just like walking around freely.
Yeah.
Everybody's like so distracted with like
disguises.
preparing for the parade that like, they don't even realize that the team's there.
Mhm.
So then that's when they go into one corridor, and that's when they're like intercepted by the other team that they steal the disguises from, and then they're caught by one of the captains of the infantry, which then they force them to like run through like their marching orders and stuff, which I thought was a fun little mini game. Which I think it wasn't like that part of it wasn't really necessary. It's more like a tutorial for like what's coming up, but nonetheless, I thought it was like a fun little like funny section.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that gathering the infantry and just building your little following, going around finding all the parts of it, just traveling through Junon, and I know the bald bar was a hit with you too, Brandon.
Oh, I love that part. I mean,
Also,
now that I've played the original,
like,
it is there, but like
it's
they
there
add more
and it's
to it.
funny and silly, but it just having a whole like a whole moment just to like really make it stand out was so good.
Especially for me, because I think of the Turks, I think at least from the first game, like Rude was probably my favorite. So the fact that like he's always like so serious that they added in this like little like community moment of the bald guys.
Mm-hmm.
Bald power.
So did you guys get like all 10 of the infantry groups?
No,
So I know you could stop after 5, but like I made sure I got all of them, and I know I spent at least like 1 hour trying to find like the last one.
Yeah, going all through every building that took you to each side. Like I'm just gonna have to start from the bottom and literally zigzag through all of it until you finally find it. But yeah, I did all of that too.
Somewhere during this too, you also run into Barrett, who's got his sailor uniform on.
I made a strategic choice to like not spend too much time there because I figured y'all would, and I was like, I can come back and do this later and probably get an hour ahead if we're at the same spot. and I was like, because I knew it was going to be tedious getting them all and trying to get that top score, which I did regret after not getting that trophy, because I was like, it would have been a lot more time considerate to just make that happen. But no, I think I found like 7 of the 10. Is that right? 10.
I got that trophy without even trying, because like
Oh.
I don't remember
tried.
if like I looked at a guide or anything, but I did.
You're talking about the one for completing the song, right? Or are you talking about the one for collecting the? Because I believe there was one for completing the 7th Infantry as well.
Okay, yeah, there might have been. But yeah, I was talking about the song because
Yeah, that I saw whenever we got to a certain point in the game, and we talked about it a little bit, and I remember like I'm gonna compare trophies and see where these guys are at, and I saw like that was like the first point where I really missed something. Then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to come back to that. And then I got a little bit further. I started looking at trophies, and I saw you got it, and I was like, God damn it! I was probably like 2 notes off from missing it too. Like I missed it by a tiny bit, but I just like brushed it off.
But there was like a very specific sequence like you had to select, and I just remember like getting lucky with that because all the different like dance sequences were like based on different summons, and I just remember picking like the summons I thought were the coolest of them, and they ended up being like ended up being supposedly the more difficult sequence.
That was great though. It was a great scene.
Yeah.
What's funny is I like hated that part in the original. Like,
Yeah.
replaying the original, I'm like, had nothing to do with it. But I mean, the nostalgia factor was huge. Not only that, but like, it was a ton of spectacle. I think some of the best cutscenes that had happened in the game at that point showed up in the Junon area. Like the really good, high resolution, really expensive looking cutscenes showing the gun and the detail and
For sure. There's
all that.
I don't remember if it's like down at the parade or like when he's like back
Mhm.
up in the cockpit. Or no, I know exactly when it was. It's like when Rufus first arrives there, and like it like does like a close up where like he puts his hand on like the door or like a chair or something as he's like getting out of the helicopter, and it's like just the detail on his hand alone was like so impressive. I remember that one specific moment standing out.
The part I thought was just what made that scene, that whole like that mini game so much better is the connection you get with the whole like that's your fucking group of dudes.
Yeah.
Like they have your back through that whole area, and I mean the more time you spend there, the more like every time you walk out of a building, they're just like so excited to see you, and like
Yeah.
it's like and it's hilarious. It's just comically like ridiculous.
It's absurd in the best way. Yeah.
Yes. So like whenever it's your turn to represent your infantry, and it made that mini game more fun because like you don't want to let them down.
Yeah,
I
the
love
Brotherhood was awesome.
To the point where like even afterwards, I think it's kind of implied that they don't understand what took place as far as so like
Yeah, maybe.
afterwards,
Yeah.
Rufus awards Cloud's team, for winning the competition, and has them on stage. Like Rufus lets Cloud know that he knows who they are, but their conflict or the problems they have isn't priority because he's more focused on getting to Sephiroth. Until Yuffie goes through her attempt and it fails. Rufus thinks that Cloud and the team are in on it. So I don't remember if he says anything exactly that like outs them. But it seems like there is a conflict there, but like the rest of like the infantry of like Cloud's infantry, I don't know if they know or not at that point that he's actually not with them.
Doesn't seem like they do, but they're so ride or die that even when they, even like he even like kind of dismisses them at a certain point at the end of it, right? Like,
well, he at the very end of it, he like tells them like I'm not who you think I am.
yeah, but they're still like,
We're like, no, we're on this team, yeah.
Yeah, we're like they're just all in.
Yeah.
I did make sure they all survived through that whole encounter because you can lose.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I was not letting my team down.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I see them talking about Knights of the Round in the chat, and I was just gonna
Oh,
quickly
man.
say that I hope that Knights of the Round in the next game is the proto like the whole proto thing that you do in each
Oh,
area. I hope that thing, whatever they replace that with in building up to the Gilgamesh thing, I hope that's what
it's a great
like they
idea.
like it needs to be intertwined with the story because that's just that's going to be epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, got excited when I saw that.
So from there, it leads into the Roche boss fight, and like there's like a few different ones with him, and they're all pretty good fights. But the moment that stands out, it's like at the very end. Uh, Roche tries to do like one final strike with the bike, and then Cloud just splits it straight in half. And then he kind of accepts defeat and allows Cloud to leave. So that's when they hop on the boat to Costa del Sol, and like I like how like all the rogue figures are just jumping on this boat too, and like nobody seems to care. Or
Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, they're just here. They're a part of it. It's fine. The boat. This is where we get moving on to, or if we're ready to move on to this chapter.
Yeah.
Is this the boat to del Sol? Is this where the Queen's Blood competition happens?
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of
How
that
do you feel about
absurdity
this
too.
part,
I was on board, man. Yeah. I at that point I had understood how to win the matches enough to where I was like, okay, sure. What I thought though, like I was fine. I was like, I've dealt with enough ridiculous BS and I've played enough games to have dealt with some just absolute absurdity, right? To where you're like, okay, I can get through whatever this is. But I did wonder, like, how many people would get to this chapter who, like, maybe like picked up the game on a whim. I don't know, and just be like, oh, I got to be in a card tournament now, and just have like no understanding of how you play the game. I was thinking about those people and being like, I wonder if this is like just alienating players for like an hour who just don't care about some of this stuff. So I don't know. But for me, I thought the story was absurd and awesome and funny.
yeah.
Yeah, I was fine with it. At that point, like if I'd had more trouble with winning the matches, I would have been like, oh my BS. But I was able to stumble my way through it. On the worst matches. I was able to stumble my way through and win them.
Yeah, I was really ready for Queen's Blood whenever this happened. Like, I loved it
yeah,
because, I mean, I picked up on the game pretty quick, and I was surprised that they had a whole chapter that, like, I did think about like the people that like, wow, this makes you do this.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
there's no way
exactly.
around it.
Right.
Like, there's kind of a way around it up until this point, but yeah, I loved it. I love the little twist that it gives you with the old Scooby Doo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
But
something.
yeah. I mean, I know that happens in the first game, but like the way they animated it and everything in this,
Yeah.
it was like
All
like
red
straight Scooby
animation,
Doo
him
scene.
riding the chocobo. Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I wouldn't have changed a thing about how they handled that nonsense. I thought it made it better.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. The cheesier that this game leaned into, the better it was. It's just very honest with itself.
The part that I loved about this chapter, and stop me from skipping ahead, but the Genova fight. I'm looking forward to talking about that, or whatever version of Genova it was you fight in the whole of the ship.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're moving on to next, because so after
Genova
the
Emergent.
after the tournament's over, it's like a whole combat section where you're fighting various enemies as you're navigating through the ship. You reconnect with, I think you, at first it's just Cloud, and then eventually you meet up with Tifa, and then later it's Barrett to, I guess, for the final 3 for the boss fight. But it's
So-
like all the rogue figures are starting to turn into these,
They're like fusing
yeah.
with the I can't remember what those creatures are called. They've got a name, but with all the experiments.
Yeah. Yeah, they kind of congregate, or they do reunion, right? They go into reunion mode. Well, there's a couple thoughts. Like I got a series of thoughts on like this whole chapter. So like I mentioned, like I was like the absurdity of Red 13 and like the military outfit and stuff like that. Like totally on board with, but like there was a certain point where by the end of the chapter, I was like, people died on that boat, right? Like we went from like, hey, there's like a zombie outbreak essentially on this ship. People are dying. Shinra was like, hey, you know, you're basically screwed, Captain. We're not going to send any help. And then you arrive Costa del Sol, and you're like, all right, we're here. Like we made it. I was like, what? I was like, what did I miss?
Any of that fucking happened?
I was like, wait. So like that is harder for me to get my head around Red 13 in the suit, because I was like, wait, are they completely divorced from the reality they're living in? Like, okay, like if they're so detached from like this stuff happening around just the standard NPCs, then like it's not that big a deal that Shinra's doing any of this stuff to the world in the first place. I mean, it's basically, oh yeah, they bombed the nuclear plant and melted down. Like that should just be like a, hey, you know, what's for dinner now? Like so that was a little wild, but like it's okay. Like it didn't bother me, and I just kind of accepted that, like, hey, we're in this world that is a fantasy. But yeah, that stuck with me because I was like, wait, did all hell not just break loose on this ship after we had a card tournament? But it's fine. It's fine. I love the Genova fight though, because, well, first of all, the design of that Genova amalgamation or whatever is awesome. But I feel like that's the first time I remembered them introducing the Genova battle theme in the original game. That really cool music. And I cannot wait till they have that on Spotify, because there's like actual, I think I mentioned this to you guys, there's actually vocals of like children singing in the background of that song now, and it sounds like something from like Ghost in the Shell or Akira or something like that. It's so cool. But yeah, I love that fight. Absolutely love that fight.
So
yeah.
Speaking of those, I guess Maelstrom or whatever you're gonna call it, but like, what do you? Because it's, you know, those rogue figures are dying, and then they revive themselves and merge together, and I don't know if Sephiroth names them, but he does kind of appear and gives a speech and to like introduce that entity to him. But like, in the grand scope of things, like what do you think they mean? Of like how they just revive and then merge. Like what's the significance of that? Is it more of the failed experiment, or?
I mean, what does it mean symbolically, or what does it mean literally is happening in the story? Like, as far as...
A little of both.
I mean, so here's my interpretation, and I'm probably way off because I'm not as deep in lore as you guys are, but like reunion, like something that I think about is like, they're always chanting reunion. Reunion's something that gets talked about in Advent Children a lot. And like to like distill it as simply as possible, reunion, like, I remember being confused for a long time because you think they always talk about reunion, you think of like a family reunion, but like quite literally reunion means to like reunite these things, right? And they're quite literally reuniting the cells of Genova, right? And so they're compelled on a genetic level to make that happen. So that's quite literally what is happening, like with anything with these Genova cells. It's even happening with Cloud on this genetic level because he's been exposed to it. It's happening with Sephiroth. So I think that's, like, without getting into like any like the supernatural or whatever that might be happening with timelines and stuff like that, I think it's quite literally just compelled to like bring Jenova, reunite Jenova. And I think the more interesting question for me, I won't get like too deep into this rant, but like it's more the question I walked away with after beating the game, but more specifically towards that part was like, wait, what is Jenova? Like, what is Jenova trying to be? What is it? Like, I never thought about it in the original game. It was this thing that was motivating Sephiroth. But I feel like in this game, in Rebirth, they got a lot more into like, what is Jenova and what impact did it have on the world when it showed up and stuff like that. So maybe start thinking about that stuff. I won't get into like what my theories on that are. But I think what happened at that scene in the game was enough of these things got together to where they could unite into a powerful entity. I don't know necessarily why it happened on the boat, but that was my interpretation. I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't know that I had much of a thought as to why specifically those creatures were merging with. I mean, it was some wild fuckery. That's what I remember thinking.
Like what was the catalyst for them like merging? Just Sephiroth
They
was
were
there
obviously
and just said,
drawn to
Yeah.
the Jenova cells that were within those clones for some reason. What I would think, or within, you know, all those, because they're all. It's like aren't like, I don't know. Maybe those monsters just have some sort of like connection to the cells as well, and they're reuniting. Like they could be parts of like Hojo's projects, and they're combining with other. I don't know. I didn't really think too deeply about that, about why. As far as like what Jenova is and stuff like that, I've got more thoughts on, but I'll wait until we've talked about more things. But yeah, I don't know.
I do think that to answer your question, Brandon, I think I do think Sephiroth provoked that moment. Like why Sephiroth chooses specific moments to show up to Cloud and whatnot, I'm not sure. Maybe that's just them, the Jenova cells overcoming Cloud in those moments, and it gives Sephiroth an opportunity to come and interfere or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, I think he drove that to happen there, or maybe there was just enough of them reunited in one area at one time to cause that to happen, you know. But that, like I said, that gets more into like what's Jenova doing, like what motivates it. And I never thought about that in the past, but now they're kind of forcing you to think about it because they get a lot deeper throughout the game into what happened in the past with Jenova before with the Cetra and stuff. So anyway,
Yeah, and the Gi.
Yeah, exactly.
well, that leads into like once you defeat the emergent, Sephiroth reappears, but quickly gives like this ominous warning: "Don't let her fool you."
Yeah.
Which that's what kind of prompted my question as far as like what they were or what they meant. So now I ask, what did he mean? Like what?
Is it? How early is he already trying to instill doubt in Cloud about Tifa?
Well, he's already
That's
mentioned once, like after he like tells him his like his memory of like what happened in Nibelheim. The only thing he's done so far to start that is he questioned Cloud how she survived.
He's constantly trying to feed Cloud's shadow and feed his doubt, and you know, instill that. He's trying to, you know.
So you think in this moment he's specifically talking about Tifa? Don't let Tifa.
It's vague
fool you?
enough. He could be either talking about something about Tifa or even something about Aerith, but I think that with the direction that it goes in a few chapters, he's already trying. He's kind of like planting the seed of like, because Cloud may realize that Tifa doesn't fully buy what Cloud is saying at this point.
Yeah.
So because they kind of have, there's some indifferences in a few cutscenes where you're like, they're not on the same page right now. And I was led to believe there that, like, I mean, not at that point, but I think later on it just made sense to me that it's like, okay, he's been seeding this whole like doubt in Tifa for a while, to the point to where, it's going to eventually make him trigger something to happen way earlier than it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not sure. I think, quite frankly, I think the biggest curveball for me with the remakes, remake and rebirth and whatever the third game is there's a little bit of mystery about like who you can trust. Like there's a little bit more of this where it's got you second guessing like Cloud more than I ever was in the original game, and Sephiroth's motivations, right, across this timeline or whatever is going on, where he's and Tifa, Aerith, or at least characters who are presenting themselves as them, right? I don't know. I feel like there's some curveball twists they're going to kind of throw in there, and that gets back to going to kind of how they elaborate on what Jenova is, because it seems like there's a big piece of manipulation that Jenova uses, and I don't know. There's something off there. I could be overthinking it. It's just Sephiroth trying to screw with you in a way that maybe he didn't in the original game. But there does seem something that's like that kept me guessing a little bit, going like, hey, can you trust everybody who's a part of this party? You know what I mean? So I'm not sure. I could speculate wildly, but I got no, real reason to.
Do you have any thoughts about that, Brandon? What do you think?
Yeah.
I'm honestly not really sure at this point.
Because I think that Cloud or Sephiroth's motivations are different between times we see Sephiroth.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have a great
there's
point.
Sometimes that his motivations seem in one direction, because there's times in cutscenes where he's friendly with Cloud, and there's times in cutscenes where he's like I said, he's feeding his shadow. He's like feeding his doubt and like, fucking with his head, and he's in his head. Like, and I think that Sephiroth is motivated by Jenova.
Well,
but I think that the Cloud or the Sephiroth that we see that sometimes is like, 7 seconds till the end, like that Sephiroth, I think has his own motivations.
Yeah, I definitely think there's still some like ambiguity there where certain characters are kind of self-aware of like what's happened or what's already happened or what's going to happen again, or the fact that that's even a concept, I don't know that's fully realized.
When I mentioned earlier that, like, I made a kind of a passive joke, but about Advent Children can be before this. It's because that I think that there is a version of Sephiroth that knows Advent Children happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just with the way, I don't know. Like, also I think there's a version of Aerith that knows that Advent Children happened. It's
Bioshock Infinite, Barrett, right? Like that's kind of there's always a lighthouse, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of there's always these constants that are happening, all these timelines.
Yeah.
Then I'm getting that vibe right now. It's scaring the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's going on anymore.
There's like an omni version of both of them.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too far into it yet, but I mean, we see later on in the game where like, and even with the flashbacks back to like Zack and everything, we see that there are different versions of these characters, and if you want to call them different universes. All these different, like you said, Sephiroth seems to have different motivations at times. How do we know that every time he pops in, it's the same one?
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Yeah, you don't know. You just gotta like, it's how you depict his intention in the moment.
Yeah.
Like in the moment, there's definitely times where he seems more evil than others. Like more directly evil than other times. I mean, he's always a bad guy, sure. I mean, I'm not gonna take that from him yet.
But they don't explicitly like show him more than that one time where they do some of the other characters. So to some extent, it's kind of implied that he's the only one.
shows like, his hair's over a different shoulder or something in certain scenes. There's some, like there's a stamp
Yeah.
kind of situation going on. But I don't know, like there's just, and it happens even more later. But I think in this moment, just for where we're at now, where he's saying, and saying not to trust, basically instilling not to trust so much into
Somebody.
some her. I feel like at this point it's Tifa.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
I would agree. It's Tifa. I think more importantly, he just wants Cloud to start doubting things. Period. So he starts unraveling. Like at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter necessarily who it is.
Right.
It could. It could matter. Yeah.
He could just
it could matter if we read the third
thinking
game. Or
he
something,
knows
but-
Cloud's thoughts, and he's just like, here's something that'll, make him spiral even more because he needs.
Yeah,
that.
it's like
He
someone-
needs him to feel despair.
Yeah, it's like someone comes up to you randomly and says, "Don't go there," and you're like, "Don't go where?" Like, yeah, it's like, what do you mean? Like, what's there?
And
now
maybe in your head, you're like, I probably
Yeah,
shouldn't do this
you're
thing. And it's
yeah.
so far in the back of your mind, but as soon as he says that, you're like, wait a minute, what? It's like right in
Yeah.
front of your mind. Yeah.
Don't go to the bathroom. Don't go to the store. What are you talking about? I kind of get that. So that's like my way of just kind of like dropping all my theories and just being like, he might be screwing with us, the player, too. Like that might be the writer. I'm serious. That might be the writer.
I love that example so much. So like, don't go there.
It's like, what? What do I do with that information? That's so unhelpful. Like, yeah. I'd be like, I'd be pissed if I was Cloud. I'd be like, don't trust her. Like, give me more than that, dude.
Yeah.
Like, trust you more? Like, you're like, what? You're like a time traveling wraith from alternate
More
dimension?
than the party, how much of a broken person Cloud is at this point, and how much more tangibly broken he can be. Yeah, I was laughing at it.
Yeah. So like Gorsh Sora.
Yeah, I just imagine
Anyway,
Goofy wasting all my potions right now.
what is that? How did that come up? How did the Kingdom Hearts Sora? I don't know. Whatever. But anyway, yeah, no, we've certainly gone down the rabbit hole, like the fuckery of the game. I think at this point, like where they start just really messing with you. They're messing with us more than messing with Cloud. They're messing with everyone who thought that they knew what was going on with the story, and they're loving every second of it. That's what I think. So
Yeah, for sure.
anyway, what happened next?
Well, after that
Till they
fight,
get there.
I was just gonna say, like, in these notes here, it's like it kind of brings up exactly what you were saying, where like the captain just comes over, he's like, "All right, everything's back to normal.
Yeah, we got it.
Return to your
Yeah.
activities, but
There's not a hole
until
in
we
the ship anymore.
Guys, apocalypse averted. Hey guys, we had a scary moment there for a second.
It's over.
But-
It's over.
It's like it's over now. They killed the space traveling omnipresent demon. But wait, sorry about that. But here's a free voucher for the stand or whatever. Yeah. Sorry. That fucks with me, that entire resolution. But hey, we're at the beach now, so everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, vacation. We forget about everything bad that's happened up until this point.
Well, speaking of, I know we're getting kind of close to our hard stop. We want to pick back up on this next time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What chapter did
what
we get
exactly?
to?
This is the
We'd be
start of
starting
number
chapter-
6.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I thought we got farther than that.
Yeah, I didn't know how well we were gonna do at this, but it's actually going about how I should have expected it to. Where we,
I figured
enjoy it,
it'd be
though.
2 to 3 episodes. My battery is low,
Yeah.
and I have to leave you fine gentlemen. All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, it's getting late. Thank y'all so much. I hope you had fun
Yeah.
with us.
yeah, thanks
We'll
for
do
hanging
part
out. We're
2 soon.
We'll try as soon as possible. When do you guys think? Y'all want to go ahead and?
We could do, yeah. Well, we could figure that out, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure. We can figure it out good live.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been fun. I'm just
Yeah.
anticipating getting to the meat because we're going through, we're picking through all the bones of everything right now, but like I want to get
Yeah. Those
We're,
last
because
3 chapters.
I
we're,
almost feel like that's going to be a whole episode in itself, and I don't want to wait 3 weeks to do that.
we're going to be
I mean, I
kicking.
can if we have to,
We're going to
but
be kicking
I
off
mean-
the next episode with the meat, in the sense of in these bathing suits.
yeah, Cloud
Oh,
that
boy.
shit. Hell yeah, dude.
I don't need to see Cloud's bare legs, any part of them, ankles, knees.
I want him.
Nah, dude. Like, what?
I want him in swimming trunks for the whole game.
Oh, jeez. Are you serious? Would you
It's
play?
such like a shell shock moment because you're so used to seeing him in these baggy ass pants that like I've never seen anybody wear pants that baggy.
I
Yep,
mean,
and then he goes
yeah,
to
no.
his 9-inch inseam swim trunks.
And we got to talk about those mopeds though, because I think I have a much different experience.
That's part of the
with those.
game.
Dude, you guys
Here.
are wrong for how you feel about those. I'm just throwing it out
Like-
there right now.
They should replace every chocobo in each area with a moped. I want mopeds that climb up walls.
Give me that mod. Give me the PC version ASAP with the moped mod.
Yeah,
No, they're not. It's not that good, but it's better than running. Never mind. We'll talk about.
yeah, we'll
I
save
just
it.
I can't wait to hear y'all's feelings on that. But anyway, y'all have a good night. This has been fun.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. Nighty
Thank
night, y'all.
everybody for stopping by. Hopefully,
Yeah, thanks for
Yep.
yeah.
drop in for the next one.
Yep, we'll have this on YouTube soon, I think.
Yep.
Cool.
See ya.
Later, y'all.
Guys.